What's going on, people? What is going on? Can y'all hear me down there in the chat? Can y'all hear me in the chat? What's going on? Hey, what's going on, Vonda? What's going on, Shar? What is cracking? What is going on? How are y'all doing on this pre-Friday, Thursday? Well, Friday for me, but Thursday for you guys. How was your week? We about to get it in. Open panel discussion. Uh, open panel discussion. What's up, RVSB? You know what I'm saying? I just got some recent good news. I hit up on 400 subs finally after all these years, but I appreciate it. I thank all of y'all. What's up, Rubies? What's going on? The link to the panel is in the back cave. What's going down? What's cracking lagging? What's going down? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Waiting for you know what I'm saying, our esteemed guest to show up, our esteemed brother in Cerulean to show up, you know what I'm saying, because he was really pushing this, and actually he has this, we call it the DeLorean. The link is in the back cave for the panel. Just wait for you to get up here. Before we get into it, I don't want to break the good news. Yeah, just a little bit over. You know, it could change. People could just say, "Not today. You ain't gonna be 400 sub guy and unsub." You know what I'm saying? But hey, I appreciate all the love and support for all of you guys. And it was a long time coming. I'm 100 subs away from my goal for this year of 500 subs. So I thank all of y'all for dealing with the inconsistency and the consistency of everything, and I appreciate it. I really do. We're still working, and we got a lot of work to do. We're not at the greatness that I hope to achieve of yet for the channel, for my channel, but I'm working through it, and I like to thank all of y'all, right? Because I do want to get that community button so I can really engage with you guys, and y'all can tell me what y'all want us to talk about and things of that nature. But it's been really good. You know what I'm saying? So what I'm gonna do is once a month, because there's been a lot of stuff going on in the news lately. I'm gonna do the 1/3 show a couple of times a month. I'm gonna do the 1/3 show like 3 times a month, and I'm gonna do the session once a month. So when we just want to sit up there and chop it up and just talk and whatever. And it's going to be a once a month open panel discussion. So what I'm going to do is, and we have our esteemed brother Cerulean here. What's going on there, our esteemed brother? What's going on, Supreme Elder?
And you're in greetings.
What's going on?
The chat, greetings, team family.
Hey, what's going on? Yeah, we're gonna do this. Hopefully, we're gonna do this 2-hour church session. Hopefully, if it goes over, it goes over. The producer's giving us a lot of leeway when we do these open panel discussions. But the meat and potatoes of this open panel is to talk about something that is near and dear to our hearts right now. What's going on, Neek? Is the military, the initiative, how the initiative works when we put a soldier in every home. And one half of the author of the initiative, and it's still a work in progress, is our esteemed Cerulean Grey here. And Charles Faulkner was also a part of that. So since the esteemed brethren is here, and we're talking about the military aspect of that, if he could gives us a brief synopsis of that part of the initiative, and then we can pull up some of the receipts of this in Hollywood, because that's usually where where it's pushed. You know what I'm saying? So really, You have the floor, my brother.
All right. Well, greetings once again. When we first started this kind of journey, what we recognized was that many of us were from military backgrounds or even military families. Like I'm from a military family. I know Charles is from a military family.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing was that I recognized the problem in the Black community not leaning to the argument of gender, but I've always leaned to the argument of policy.
Mm-hmm.
It's political, it's social, and it's economic. Now, in terms of priority, it is economic first, policy second, and the social third.
Mm-hmm.
However, because we're in a disadvantaged state, we have to put the politics first to get to the economics to have the social.
Mm-hmm.
When we started this out, we looked at history to determine what has worked for Black America before and what has worked the most consistently and what's still working today. And it's a really, you come to a bunch of really simple answers to all of these things. And so I like to be a little more scholarly than most. So I used the compensatory code, Neely Fuller Jr.'s compensatory code, as the mold to see where we need to be at as far as expanding the Black middle class to prevent a total zeroing out of Black wealth by 2053. And that requires Black people to become more institutionally focused. And what that means is you are an American. If you're Black, you're an American. In fact, we propose that you are the last true Americans left. As everyone else are mere Johnny-come-latelys. They are mere, practically freeloading while carrying on the same heritage of this legacy of racism, slavery, which is really just the legacy of whiteness. I'm white and I'm right. And because many of us were from the same military background, we start with the military. We use the military as a basis because the premise is that when we look at where America spends her money, right, it's not on individual things. America spends her money on institutional things, which is why you have so many people today having a hard time understanding this. And they try to simplify it by breaking it down to an argument between socialism and capitalism. The military, cornerstone of nations. If you have no military, you really don't have a nation, lest you become a protectorate state of someone else. And yet, when we look at history, we know what protectorate states end up looking like. They end up being exploited by their very protectorate government. I said, I will do security. Now you pay me. Now you pay me defense money. Now you pay me protection money. And the military is the cornerstone. Military gets the biggest budget. And in fact, the military industrial complex, even though it was warned against, it is highly beneficial to our group, because this country is not going to stop defending our borders. This country is not going to stop securing resources that fuel American economy. America is not going to stop for anyone. I mean, just leaving a trade war with America's biggest competitor and biggest creditor. And even America decided, just because we owe China money doesn't mean we're going to let you run roughshod, right? Now, when it comes to Black Americans, you are Americans. You are the last living Americans, the last generation. Okay? And militaries, that means that military, that means that is your institution. You as an American, because you are an American, and you're a real American, born here, rooted here, planted in this soil where your blood continues to hydrate the tree of liberty and all of that good stuff. This is where we are at. We have to stop looking at American institutions in an adverse way to where they become adversarial. As a matter of fact, the more adversarial an institution is, the more you should actually want to be in it. Because there's obviously something there that they want to keep away from you. And that thing is usually the reins of power. And as we know, power is never just given to you. You have to take it. And when you're looking at America in not just the national, but the geopolitical aspect of America, you would understand that she is in a period of decline. And whether or not America will recover, who knows? But in the meantime, while everything is happening around you, all of this chaos afoot, right? Sure, chaos is tragic, but it's also a ladder.
No, and I'm glad that you said that. And that doesn't mean America cannot get back to being back on top. Obviously, America needs Black folk, right? And because if America didn't need Black folk to get back on top, they could easily got rid of us a long time ago.
Well, yeah. One of the reasons why America didn't go full on Nazi Germany and actually end up going with a more relaxed state of Nazi Germany was because every 30 years or so, whether you know it or not, and America's in one of the worst periods of time right now, where just about every 30 years, the dominant society goes through the birth girth. they go through that period of low birth rates.
Mm.
They go through the period which having children becomes harder and in many cases unfeasible.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that they've corrected that in the past was by passing a massive immigration policy to inject new genetic stock. And even politically and socially, allowing this immigrant group to, on a social level, claim to be a part of the dominant society.
I'm glad you brought that up there, Cerulean. Um, because we like to bring receipts, right?
Indeed.
Okay, so now let me pull this receipt out here. I should have had it ready. Because Cerulean brought up something about the birth rates. Okay, and our esteemed RVSOP actually sent me this article. Thank you to our esteemed RVSOP. And brought me this. So let me pull up this article here about the new generation and their staggering birth rates. Right, that they're not having children like they normally have. And salute to everybody that are watching. And please like or dislike the stream, or what I'm saying. It'd be greatly appreciated. But the staggering birth rates, the birth rates alone, they're already talking about repealing abortion laws and stuff like that. And they have this article. Let me get it real quick. They have this article where they're talking about the newer generation and how they have to find a way to incentivize the family dynamic on the dominant society, because the newer generation is not having children the way they are. Like their birth rates are actually lower than I say, what is it? During the baby boomer generation. Okay, so experts.
Even the Vietnam generation.
Yeah, the Vietnam generation. So let me bring this up. Let me share the screen. Hold on. Let me do this. Share screen. Let me share the screen. Let me go to the Chrome tab here. Hold on. Experts. Okay, so this is ABC. This is CBS. I'm sorry. This is CBS this morning. So here's a receipt, right? We're not just making this up. This is a news article. This came out March 3rd. So what is the day's date? Because, for me, it is the 5th. So it's the 4th, right?
4th, yeah.
It's the 4th. So this is only a day old. Okay. So I'm not going to play this video, right? But now this is during a pandemic. New data is confirming a baby boom that some doctors expected was actually a baby bust. Health departments in more than 24 states provided records to CBS News showing a 7% drop in births in December, 9 months after the first lockdown began. Researchers say it continues a much bigger plunge in fertility in recent decades. The number of babies the average woman in the U.S. is expected to deliver has dropped from nearly 4 in the 1950s to less than 2 today. The drop could present an entire different risk to society than the one was first warned about decades ago when apocalyptic fear gripped America in the 1960s and 1970s. Now, Cerulean, before I continue, can you go ahead and tell us what happened in the 1960s and 70s that would cause this?
Well, the same thing that happened before we get to the 1960s and 70s. You have to understand what happened 30 years prior.
Mm-hmm.
30 years prior, right? America is going through a state of economic decline. It was just recovering from the Great Depression, right? The problem is that when economy does bad, people have less children because they're looking at these things in a very financially conscious way. And then whenever we try to go back to having children, in the 30s and especially in the late 30s, you had children that were suffering from, different prenatal syndromes, whether it's blue babies, pulmonary, genetic defects.
Polio, right?
Yeah, polio, cystic fibrosis. These things were very common. Where the longest the child would live if they had cystic fibrosis was 5 years. Then you had on the other side, because medicine technology had not caught up with the times yet, you had a high mortality rate. So a woman may have a child, yes, brought a new life in the world, but it takes one away as an exchange. Now, what changes all of that? Well, war. War completely changes all of these things. Why? Because you are removing a good portion of men out of society. You're displacing them in a place of trauma where they'll be tested, right? They'll be tested in very hazardous conditions. See, and it's a built-in evolutionary trait, because all species actually need trauma in order to evolve. If there is nothing, think of the law of relativity. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. If that first action is never done, then you never get the reaction that causes it to evolve, to keep the motion going.
Now that you said that, Cerulean, I'm gonna read what Ruby said in the chat, and this is very informative. And Ruby says, I am no expert, but it seems to me that after the boomer generation, it was inevitable that the birth rate was going to decline to normalize.
Well, that's true. And see, that's why we went back 30 years, right? Economy collapses. And if economy collapses, what else is affected by economy? People can't afford the food that they need. They can't afford the nutrition that they need to carry a baby to terms. And if they did, they probably died. Not only that, you had excessive inbreeding going on in America. West Virginia is the first state to pass anti-incest laws to prevent inbreeding, to diversify the genetic stock. Okay? Now, after World War II, America returns home. The American soldiers are returning home as these heroes, right? America's economy starts picking back up with the passing of the laissez-faire at the Treaty of Versailles. Economy starts taking off like a rocket. People are generating wealth faster than it had ever been done before. And that's because at this point in time, we're at the height of the Industrial Revolution. In fact, the Industrial Revolution is on a decline, where we're entering the innovation revolution, the revolution of invention and innovation.
And what years was this, really?
Now, this is in the late 1930s
Mm.
to the end of World War II, talking 1946.
Mm.
And what happens whenever that thing, when the economy picks back up? People are now able to afford the proper nutrition, right?
Mm-hmm.
People are able to buy the things that they need, and the men aren't being shipped off to yet again another war. And so they get to sit here. And what do? Well, it wasn't like TVs were around in 1946. It sure didn't have cell phones or smartphones, iPhones. Didn't
Mm-hmm.
have the internet to where they could go online and espouse these ideals of how they are dry in the crotch.
Mm-hmm.
And so thus the baby boomers began.
Mm. Now, I'm gonna go back to this because,
And those
and this is
children
okay.
mind you, they become the children by the time they are 30 years old. They are going through the era of Roe v. Wade, flower power, sex without commitment, sex without judgment, sex without any kind of equal exchange or mutually beneficial agreements. And these become the children who, once again, society in decline by the height of the Vietnam War. And what's happening? The very same thing. What did that free love and flower power get you? It got you a bunch of drug-induced junkies who wholly ran derelict in their responsibilities of the children that they were creating. And
Mm.
who were those children that those children of the boomers were creating? Well, those ended up becoming your Xers.
Mm.
And
Say,
this
hold on, wait a minute. You got to say that again for the people in the back with the soft helmets on and the cowboy boots.
1970s. Again, this is the era of flower power. Who's able to engage in adult society? It's the boomers
Mm.
who were made, who literally born only 30 years ago after the end of World War II. Now we're fast forwarding 30 years. These are grown adults, engaged, sex, drugs, rock and roll, no commitment, no judgment, no rules.
Mm.
Rage against the machine, rage against the establishment. Damn the
Mm.
establishment and its dictates. Why is this happening? Well, 1961, America leaves the gold standard. So your money is practically worthless. So what is happening here in America? America is injecting the economy with this new idea, a new schema. It's called credit. And now America can train more soldiers, build more tanks, build more airplanes and helicopter ships without
Mm-hmm.
physically having the money to pay for it. And then
Mm.
what happened? The Vietnam War ended up being a complete total mess that sank American economy. And what did people fall back on? They fell back to the ways that they acted, behaved back in 30 years ago in their parents' time, and also the same conditions where you had malnutrition, low birth rates, trying to fix it with an injection of genetic material from places unknown with an immigration act.
Mm.
And then the era of flower power, free love, no commitments, no rules. And the children that are made in this period, in that post-Vietnam period, These are your Xers that are born in the early 70s. You know, the same ones that started having the same problems all the way until you get, let's fast forward another 30 years, we get to the dot-com boom of the early 90s. 1995, Windows 95. It actually comes out in 1994. It's called Windows 95.
And by the way, and here's the funny thing. Here's a fun fact, and I'm gonna go back in there because we jumping ahead of the article a little bit. But nobody in America would actually fund, no computer chip company would actually fund Windows. Actually, it was a Japanese company that funded and took a risk on Bill Gates' Windows 95 that was actually supplemented by military funding and R&D. And when the lease on the patent was up, the Japanese, the company NEC, was the ones with the chip that put the Windows 95 on the chip that is in all the Windows computers when Windows 95 came out. So every Windows computer or every Windows computer, IBM or whatever that came out, had a Japanese chip in it, and that started your pat your was it T? I forgot, a TPP. That's the onus of the TPP, and that's where you start getting a large influx of Japanese goods and services. You start seeing a lot of things called made in Japan on your goods and services, and this started the ultimate decline of the United States manufacturing things in CONUS.
Yes, because TPP, that's the Trans-Pacific Partnership that allowed corporations to export jobs in the 70s to Asian countries like Taiwan, Indonesia, Japan,
and China.
China,
and the Philippines. So I'm gonna keep reading this right here, right? Because this is very informative, right? Now, the stakes in this battle was far greater than any other we have ever fought. Walter Cronkite said in 1970, CBS News broadcast. Now, what y'all don't know, because me and Cerulean was doing this in the back chat, things that happened in America in March. This is when Walter Cronkite first became the anchor for CBS News, Evening News, in March, right? So the experts were interviewed told us the population was at a fundamental crisis. As the world stampeded toward 10 billion people, many researchers back then predicted that overpopulation would ruin humanity. Biologist Paul Ehrlich once explained the threat as the population bomb, the title of a book he authored in 1968. Sometime in the next 15 years, the end will come, and by the end, I mean an utter breakdown of the capacity of the planet to support humanity, he said in a 1970 broadcast. Today, however, a very different note is struck by researchers like the University of Southern California professor Dow Myers, who studies demographic trends. The trouble is we overshot and we dropped it down too much now, Myers told CBS This Morning co-host Tony Duco Upland, I guess how you say his name. While the global population is still growing, a major study published in the Lancet in 2020 predicted it would peak in 2064 and then fall by nearly 1 billion people by the end of the century. The reason being fewer babies. The U.S. is already below the so-called replacement level by some measures, meaning fewer young people to support the country's otherwise aging population. Myers said of the decline, that's a crisis. We need to have enough working age people to carry the load of these seniors who deserve their retirement. They deserve all their entitlements. They're going to live out another 30 years, he said. Nobody in history of the globe has had so many older people to deal with. The coronavirus pandemic is also making the problem worse, despite that some people previously thought. We thought, oh, we should see a baby boom, but we just haven't seen it, said Dr. David Jasmin, chairman of the Department of gynecology, and obstetrics. That's how you say it, at Einstein Medical Center in Philadelphia. Jaspin said patients are not only worried about their health, but their finances as well. I get a report every morning at 5:15 about what's happening in the last 24 hours. And the first report that I see is the number of deliveries in the past 24 hours, Jasper said. And it is less than it used to be. Now, by me saying this, right, the reason why they wanted to keep people at home, yes, is to stop the spread of the virus. But if you're at home and you're with your spouse or whoever you're cohabitating with, by proxy, you will have to deal with each other. You would have to have children, right? Now, the problem is that they have these things called contraceptives, and what that means is birth control. And then you have abortions. So if you get rid of Planned Parenthood, which supplements what? And birth control, and you defund that program or get rid of it altogether, and the right for women to have abortions, what that means is you're forced to have children, and people are forced to stay together, right? Is that correct?
Well, that's also part of it, but
Yep.
it also isolates you to limit you from interacting in society in any possible meaningful way while the economy is being reorganized.
Exactly. And so now the Bookings Institute has predicted a large lasting baby bust of at least 300,000 fewer children in 2021. For Laura Lindbergh, who tracks reproductive data for the Gutschen March Institute, the decrease in births could be a sign of progress, a marker of women's equality and freedom of choice. So it's a shift to the later in life, and a shift comes more education, more career, more employment. So it's reordered of how people engage in adulthood, Lindenberg explained. Dow Myers doesn't disagree, but in the bigger picture, he worries the declining birth rate is also a barometer of despair. Myers said he never expected to be talking about a global. Remember, this is not just happening in America. This is globally. I can tell you in Japan, they have a birth rate problem. They're actually incentivizing people to have children. Every child that you have in Japan, guess what? If you're married, you don't pay for childcare. You don't pay for the birth of the child. You get 100%. So if you have a child in Japan and you go to the doctor, they refund you that money, 100% of that money that you spent out, right? And they have a universal health system, not the one that they have in the States. So this is happening globally. Okay, ask what changes. He pointed to the burdens of life, the cost of housing, the cost of education. All these things have become more and more difficult. Dahl said, I think the boomers themselves don't realize how much harder it is for millennials today. And they think, oh, yeah, when we were young, we had to live, a very little money, and we made do. And you can do the same. And this is the story, right? Well, no, it really is a lot harder for young people today. And it's amazing how much harder it is. The pull yourself up by your own bootstraps model. Cerulean, go ahead. I know you have a lot to say on this. Go ahead.
Well, is it any wonder why you look just even let's go back 20 years, right? 20 years ago, anybody else paying attention understood it was inevitable for another war
Mm-hmm.
because America's broke.
Yes.
America is going around sanctioning, creating enemies on all sides, which is bad for trade. And if it's bad for trade, well, you can produce all that you want, but who are you going to sell it to? If you're sanctioning someone and then they turn around and say, well, we just won't accept American products. What does that do? Sinks economy. See, you assume that you were living in a middle class lifestyle. No, you were living in middle class credit. That's what the 90s was. Because that's really in the late 80s, early 90s, that's really the beginning of the quote unquote service or gig economy, where you start seeing less and less and less and less, even more down to where you literally gotta go around and do some real soul searching to find an actual American manufacturer. But you have to walk 20 feet to find somebody working at a McDonald's, at a Lowe's, at a Target, at a Walmart.
Now, remember, I did that stream and we were talking about how in December that 100% of the layoffs were women, right? Yeah. Okay. Now, there's an article that came out. Now, if y'all understand this, if you're repealing abortion rights, if you're repealing free choice, and if you're doing all of this stuff that in the back corners, you're keeping people in the home, and then you're removing women from the workforce, right? You're basically setting things back pre-women's rights, right? In a systematic way that people don't see in an underlining way, right? So this will help with doing what, right? But you got to reset the economy, right? So here's another one right here, right? And we bring receipts here, so we're not just talking and saying things, right? We're bringing this up. Now I'm gonna bring this up. Now, this is March the 4th. Okay, it's March the 4th now for you guys. It's March the 5th for me. So I want to make this apparent. How, you know what I'm saying, we're showing this. Okay, this is up to date. This is right here. These are the articles. Okay. All right. Now, with this being said, pushed out by the pandemic, women struggle to regain a footing in the U.S. job market. Okay. Kathy McCoy, if that's how you say her name, hoped she would have more time for her job search after her 5-year-old daughter started in-person kindergarten in mid-November after months of virtual learning due to the pandemic. But the school in Grand Rapids, Michigan closed again a week later as COVID-19 infections surged, and they are across much of the country. The unpredictable schedule made it difficult for her, I'm just, because I can't really pronounce her last name and I don't want to keep butchering it, to find time for interviews and networking, or to figure out a feasible work schedule. Now, we talked about a lot of these women that are mothers and that are married that are going to OnlyFans or other sources of income. I also talked about the paramedic driver in New York that had an OnlyFans page so she could supplement her income. Here we go. So even though school opening again in January, she, who was furloughed from her job with a local arts organization last June and permanently laid off in November, decided to stop searching. What do you say to an employer in that situation? She said she's 41. Okay, they're going to hire someone who doesn't need a bunch of exceptions. After being hit disproportionately by the pandemic-related job losses last year, women in the United States are struggling to get back to work. A slowdown in the job recovery, obstacles to secure childcare, and concerns about workplace flexibility are making it difficult for women to recoup the jobs they lost and threaten to undo some of the economic gains women made before the pandemic. The U.S. Labor Department will issue another update Friday when it releases the jobs report for February, but as of January, women accounted for slightly more than half of the 10 million jobs that were lost during the crisis, even though they typically made up a little less than half the workforce. The hurdles are pushing women to abandon the workplace at higher rates than men. More than 2.5 million women left the labor force between February 2020 and January of this year compared to the 1.8 million men. Vice President Kamala Harris called the exodus a national emergency during a video call in February with Democratic lawmakers and activists. Our economy cannot fully recover unless women can participate fully, she said. Women leaving the labor force at higher rates. Women leaving the labor force at higher rates, and this is the graphic. Women need support. With labor market gains slowing and employment in some industries where women are overrepresented, including leisure and hospitality, recovering more slowly, some women may need help moving into different lines of work, says C. Nicole Mason, the chief executive of the Institute of Women's Policy Research. Some women are not going to be able to return to jobs that were lost, said Mason. And an uneven job recovery and uneven jobs recovery, there's a graphic right there. School closures and the shift in virtual learning also disproportionately affect working moms, research shows. An analyst by researchers at the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago found that the share of women who were either employed or looking for work, known as the labor force participation rate, dropped more than severely in the spring and the fall of 2020 for mothers between the ages of 25 and 54 than it did for people without children. Black women, single mothers, and those without college education saw the biggest impact. Given the persistence of effects thus far, it will be somewhat surprising to see much of the reversal until schools and daycare facilities normalize their operations, the Chicago Fed Research wrote in a letter published in January. President Joe Biden's $1.9 trillion corona aid bill, which was passed by the House, included funding for schools, subsidies for children care costs, and support for the child care industry, which is struggling with higher costs and reduced revenue during the crisis. The bill still needs Senate approval. Afraid to be judged. When Allison Zucker has job interviews, she tries not to bring up being a parent. Before the pandemic, Zucker, 41, spent more than 10 years working in educational publishing, most recently as an executive editor designing the curriculum that teachers and students use in the classroom. After being laid off in September, Zucker is now freelancing and looking for a full-time job. I'm worried that I will be judged for having to take care of my kids, or maybe they'll think that I'm unreliable, said Zucker, who has a 7-year-old boy and girl twins and a 3-year-old boy. I'm trying not to mention it, even though I think it's a huge asset. Moms get stuff done. Flexibility will be key to helping women who need to oversee their children's virtual schooling to get back to work. For jobs with easy adjustable work schedules, such as positions in management, the ratio of mothers working did not change significantly during the pandemic, according to the research paper published in February by the San Francisco Federal Reserve. But for occupations with stricter schedules, such as those in education, women with children saw a pronounced decline in employment compared to women without children. Zucker says she is grateful that her husband, a computer programmer, is still working and they have the help of a nanny. Now, hold on one second. Now, Cerulean, nannies cost money, right?
Indeed.
So she says she has a child, she has twin girls, and she has a baby, right? So she has 4 children and she has a husband. So he's a computer programmer. So don't you see this trend, right? Yep. So that means that nucleus of spitting up the nucleus of having the father out of the home and empowering women and all of that they were doing before is coming back to bite them in the ass. So they need to get the family dynamic back together, because a 2-parent household bringing in income, even in a pandemic, can still keep what? If the mother is home raising the children and the father is out working, then that takes the pressure off of government to provide for a single parent household. Is that not correct?
Yes.
Okay. So now this is the dominant society, because they've been doing this to us for a long time, but when it happens to them, it's a crisis, right? So let's just get that right. So Zucker says she is grateful that her husband, a computer programmer, is still working and that they have the help of a nanny. But finding long periods of time to work uninterrupted in the 2-bedroom apartment in New York City has been difficult, especially with school alternating frequently between in persons and virtual. When Zucker has a meeting or interview, she locks herself in the bedroom using an ironing board as a desk, and she is also productive after the children are asleep. Zucker says she hopes to find an employer that trusts her to complete her tasks on her own schedule. I can get my work done, she says. Now, listen, this woman has a husband, she has a nanny, and she still can't get stuff done. But
Well,
yeah, I mean, you know what I'm saying? But she wants the employer to think that she can get it done on her own schedule, right? On her own schedule. Now, do you see the entitlement of the dominant society, right? Is that not privilege of the dominant society, right? Now, the lady before her, the single mother before her, right, said that when her daughter was doing remote schooling, she worked with her mom. She worked with her from 9 a.m. to about 1 p.m., helping her with assignments, making sure that the 5-year-old was engaged in virtual lessons. After lunch, that left her about 3 hours in the afternoon for potential job interviews, but without childcare, she would need to keep her daughter entertained with the television or a smartphone app. Because her husband works out of home as an audio engineer producing virtual events, he is not available to help with the child care during the day. Now, the woman in question, they didn't mention her, like, so we thought she was a single mom, right? Now they're saying this woman has a husband, right? Now what we're saying is that she's not a single mom, is she not? So
yeah.
both of these women are married and their husbands are working, right? So 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 when the school shuts down again last fall after only a week open, was crushed. Now that her daughter is back at school, she is using her time to work on a blog about recipes and cocktails and outlets she hopes will lead to income. But the possibility of school shutting down again always looms. I feel like I'm failing if I'm just putting my child in front of the TV all day so I can do this. Well, then what does that mean, Cerulean? Then stop doing that and putting your child in front of the TV and do your job. Because you have a husband. I can understand if you was a single mom and then you have to bring in sole income, but your child is 5. Do you see the entitlement on the dominant society? I'm not saying this. These are women that are married, that have husbands, that have good jobs, that are actually providing. What you're hearing in this article is that this woman that is married, that has a husband, that is providing, she's used to, because of the environment, it's not her fault to that degree, has incentivized and told her that she needs to not rely on anybody but herself, make her own income, and she is quickly to push her child off that the system can raise her child so she can go get whatever she wants to go get. Because the first teachers of children isn't the system, it is the parents.
Lest the parent be derelict.
Lest the parent be derelict. And if you're sitting your child in front of a TV all day, and like the lady said, she had to put an ironing board up against the door so she could do whatever. And the husband even, so is that an extra expense, Cerulean, to go get a nanny?
Yeah.
You have a nanny? You live in a 2-bedroom apartment in New York and you paid for a nanny instead of getting a house that's bigger so your kids have more space?
Yeah.
Do you see the entitlement in the dominant society that was actually incentivized by the system of the dominant society? Right?
Right.
I'm just saying. I listen. I'm not saying anything about women not working. Women work. They've always worked. When men were out there fighting in wars, it was women that were in those factories pumping out those uniforms, putting together those guns, all of that stuff, right? You know what I'm saying? Women actually were actually more intricate in the industrial age than men when it came to manufacturing, putting the product out and logistics and everything. I'm not saying that. What I am saying from this right here is that the problem comes into place that the system in place incentivized things in the wrong spectrum and messed up the family dynamic between men and women because women carry children, women nurture children, men provide for the house, men conquer the environment so the women can nest in it and they can nurture the environment so you have a better future. And this is the problem because if the society is raising your child before you're raising your child and you get used to that, then what happens is that the children belong to the society and they don't belong to you. And everything is on autopilot after that. And this is why they want the children because they need the children because of what? Income. These two articles are one and the same as two sides of the same coin. And this is how they're attacking the dominant society. They are systematically pushing women out purposely because the birth rates are low. And they already told you the reason why they incentivize that in the first place because some I'm smarter, I'm real smart, dumb dude was telling everybody that we were going to have this crazy overpopulation thing and we need to find a way to cut down the birth rates. So, how do you cut down the birth rates? You incentivize women to enter the workforce at a higher rate. You remove men from the workforce, and women in that environment, they're not going to go and have children because their environment is not secure because they have to secure their own environment. And hence you have this massive global baby decline. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct. If you really want to like compare and contrast it to something, basically what happened was the legislators made the attempt at duplicating Dr. John B. Calhoun's Mouse Utopia on the general populace. And just like the experiment, it worked as intended. America reached the behavioral sink, just as it did 30 years prior to, before it sprouted back up, thanks to science and technology, fertility clinics, which are also controlled by Planned Parenthood, and just as it did 30 years prior to that, when none of those apparati existed.
Mm. Mm.
See, the difference is if you notice the brothers,
Yeah.
the brothers have a tendency to blame themselves or each other, or we have a tendency to generalize the conversation, make it about a specific gender. But if you notice in that article, do you notice something about that article?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't genderize the conversation. In fact, it politicizes the conversation.
Mm.
Because what is it talking about? Legislature.
Yeah.
See, the whole time you didn't hear the word specifically because we're thinking we're talking about biology. We're actually talking about politics. Why? Because once again, let's go back 30 years. You have Vietnam era, the children of flower, power, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, rage against the machine. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Those were the Xers. Those are the children of the boomers.
Mm-hmm.
Those were that promising future, right? Of LBJ's greater society, of Nixon's future America. Because Nixon was a futurist. He was one of the ones too, we need to be fruitful and multiply. And then what happened? You can't do it. You don't have enough gold to bet against that gold that you have on reserve. The countries that you owe money to knows this. France, the king of France says, you know what? He's not the king. Excuse me. He's the president of France. Well, actually, no. He's the king at this point.
Yeah, right? Yeah. I think Cerulean, once Queen Elizabeth dies 200 years from now, and the next male that's in line, he automatically becomes the king of France and England. So yeah, he's the king of France as of right now.
And so what you had was king of France says, America, you owe me money. Stop bullshitting. I'm going to send this warship over. It's a boatload with your dollars on it. I want my fucking gold. Now, mind you, even though this is a massive warship, it still takes a couple of weeks for it to get to the shores of America, considering all it has to traverse. What does Nixon do? he gets on the horse and says, look, we don't have your money. You're going to have to turn that boat around. France says, no, you're going to pay me my money or else. And if the or else is we're going to fire cannons on America. And you're going to have to go toe to toe with us. Even though that time, France probably had a shot because it didn't have as massive expansion as you do now. Right? And then you know what happened after that? Nixon said, you know what? Look, we're done with the gold standard. Fuck you and your gold, France. And you can suck it. And then they introduced this thing. It was called the Glass-Steagall Act, right? This exorbitant privilege was created. And that was also the birth of a new type of fractional reserve lending, to where a bank could have, say, $1 million. Well, guess what happens? The bank could load 10 million, 20 million, take options on those things, and what the returns are end up being the dividends for the stockholders. These people are getting filthy rich. Problem is you can't do business like that. Why? Because you end up what you have in the late 70s, where most of America is impoverished. Banks are mostly insolvent. We need somebody who can come in and fix it. Who was their answer? Ronald Reagan.
You know, Cerulean, I do find it interesting, and after I say this, we like to welcome Chandra to the panel. You do find it interesting that whenever America wants to reorganize their economy and renege on stuff, they always put a former entertainer in the seat of the president.
Is it any wonder? Like, if you really think about it, is it any wonder Ronald Reagan comes at a time where, once again, they're expecting a decline during the Xer period. Xers is one of the greater periods because they weren't Rage Against the Machine, Flower Power, Era of Free
Oh,
Love. No, the Gen
oh,
Xers were actually amongst the most responsible because these are the latchkey kids.
Yeah. And not only that, but the government implemented policies to make the Gen Xers a source of profit. You know, the war on drugs, the crack epidemic. You know, these Gen Xers become a source of profit through the prison industrial system as well as the general fines levied on people, you know, for drug use. Or, you know, for example, the war on drugs is an extension of the war on black people.
hold on, wait a minute, wait a minute. Let's give a shout out to our CIAs out there.
Out to the CIA. One love to the FBI.
And the CIA were the ones who actually brought crack into the black community.
Mm.
You know, I brought that up the other day on our Lady Bob Cherry's panel. Like, don't you ever find the suspicions that he would name his little inner circle after two organizations that
There's
spent
nothing but just
decades
destroyed the black community.
that spent decades assassinating our leaders, depressing the local urban economies to where it created white flight by manufacturing crime.
Yeah.
Because redlining is illegal at this point, right? So how do you redline by another name? Well, you manufacture crime by criminalizing specific behaviors.
Some
Don't
behavior
you
specific
find it
drugs.
rather interesting? I mean, don't you find it rather interesting, right? Ronald Reagan is celebrated as the president for free market capitalism, right? Don't you understand?
Well,
Street level.
what he did was he made free prison labor by making marijuana have 10 to 20-year sentences. Crack cocaine, which is just the addition of cooking some cocaine, actually have longer sentences than the actual cocaine itself, while having quite literally the same chemical effect on the body.
So you're telling me, I just want to make this apparent, right? You're telling me that a white man, right? They made a movie about it. I think Johnny Depp started it, right? A white man moving bricks of cocaine. Oh, we're going to get to that in a second, right? Because I'm going to talk about Mr. Tim Allen. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
See, bricks of cocaine don't carry the same weight and or years as crack cocaine.
Shout out to RBR. Shout out to RBR.
The little baggies of crack cocaine, because they were cooked as crack, they were, from a policy perspective, they were scrutinized harder because it was the poorer people who would use crack, because crack was after you cut the pure cocaine. You use crack to cut the pure cocaine so you could have more based on the small amount you had. So poorer people would use crack, which is why cocaine carries a lesser charge than crack cocaine, even though it's the same drug.
Now here's the funny part, right? So if let's just say this, right? Let's just say Tyrone goes to get his brick of cocaine, Free Ray Rick Ross, right? Tyrone gets his brick of cocaine, right? And Tim Allen gets his bricks of cocaine, and Tyrone, Free Ray Rick Ross, takes that 1 kilo of cocaine, breaks it down into crack, and he gets what? How many years did he get? Versus Tim Allen, that's just moving straight cocaine, only getting 2.5 years in a federal penitentiary. Where how many years?
You mean the federal luxury resort?
Yeah. So so Free Ray Rick Ross just got out of jail recently, while Tim Allen is a millionaire, right? So let's just get this straight. So black people have to do with less, right? Because they say, well, you need to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, but you got to make your boots and your straps first, then pull yourself up.
Well, see, there's a fundamental problem. Like, don't you ever find it interesting, right? Ronald Reagan is known, literally, they crowned Ronald Reagan the king of modern conservatism.
But can we pause for a second? Has anybody ever tried, while standing up, to pull themselves up by their own bootstraps? Hold on to the bottom of your boot and try to lift yourself up any higher. See how far you get. You're going to fall your ass on the floor is what happens. But
Or
if you don't lift yourself any higher.
Now, before we go forward, right? While we're talking about this, because we got to bring receipts, because we can't just say things and we don't bring the receipts. We love to bring receipts around here. Yes, we do. Shout out to the CIAs. You know what I'm saying? Show your work. Show your work.
Today I'm going to show you now.
You know what I'm saying? We're gonna show you this high value man. You know what I'm saying? Tim Allen's I think he's a what? He's a 8-figure, 9-figure, right? So Tim Allen says he was lost before serving time in prison on cocaine charges in his 20s. Tim Allen was arrested in 1978 and pleaded guilty to drug trafficking charges. Tim Allen is reflecting on his past mistakes that landed him in prison in his 20s. The Home Improvement star appeared on an episode of What the F with Mark Maron podcast Monday and opened up about his struggles with substance abuse and his 2-year stint in jail after pleading guilty to drug trafficking charges. I was an F up. Allen, 67, told host Mark Marion, after my old man died, I just played games with people and told adults what they wanted to hear and then stole their booze. He continued, really, I was Eddie Haskell from Leave It to Beaver. Yes, Miss Cleaver. No, Mrs. Cleaver. I knew exactly what adults wanted to hear. Make your bed, be polite, use a napkin, and then I go steal everything in the house. Now, this is Tim Allen right here. Look at that. Look at that Dirk Diggler. Look at that. Right? Right? Now, look how skinny he is. Shout out to the CIAs and FBIs out there. Right? So, Allen, now nearly 23 years sober, said he began drinking at the age of 10, inspired by cowboy movies that showed men riding horses and drinking whiskey. That stuff's got to be pretty damn refreshing, he thought at the time. By the time his father was killed in a car crash when he was 11, he was already an experienced drinker. I was lost, he said of his adolescence. In 1978, when he was 25, Allen was arrested at Kalamazoo Battle Creek International Airport in Michigan with over a pound of cocaine in his luggage. He pleaded guilty to the charge and was sent to federal prison for 2 years and 4 months. I just shut up and did what I was told, he said of his time in prison. It was the first time ever I did what I was told and played the game. I learned literally how to live day by day and learn how to shut up. You definitely want to learn how to shut up. I don't say this lightly, and anybody who has ever been incarcerated knows it's surprising what the human being will get used to, he added. Eventually, after 8 months, I got used to it. There were okay times. Saturday, we got better food. Eventually, I went from a holding cell arrangement to my own cell. His own cell. Now, looking back, Allen said he was grateful for his sobriety and his current life. I love my life, he said. I'm not any more mentally stable. I have the same issues I had. Now I can't hide from them. Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. We're done with the receipt.
Yeah.
This is Home Improvement guy, right? So he got what, 2.5 years, and you know, your average black person got what, 10, 20? You know.
But wait, you know, the RICO law a white guy or a guy could literally have 10 kilos versus less than an ounce of rock, and they'll.
Well, interestingly enough, simply Nick said something in the chat. He said felonies don't matter when you're white, and based on the data, a white felon actually has 3 times the chance to get a call back for a job than a black non-criminal record person. Like a black person with a clean criminal record, they still have 1/3 the chance to get a call back for a job than a white felon. So yeah, you're right. Felonies don't matter when.
Hey man, I heard on someone's panel that Breonna Taylor, if she didn't have a relationship with her ex-boyfriend, if she wasn't in a relationship for 2 years, she wouldn't have got shot and killed. And she was a paramedic. We got a whole Tim Allen with a brick of coke on a flight. He wasn't even transporting it like RBR was. He was on a flight moving the bricks. He was drinking since he was 10. That's 15 years of drinking. He said he was stealing stuff. Wow.
Now, let's just take a look at Tim Allen, though, right? You have this white guy, and you know what they probably said during his trial? Look at this innocent boy. He got a rough start. His father died when he was 11. And he's got some substance abuse problems, but it's a sickness. You know what they say when it's a black person? Oh, throw him away. Oh yeah, this crack dealer right here. Yeah. We need to make sure he never sees the light of day again. We need to protect the community from a menace like him.
Well, see, here's one of the fundamental problems, right? Because if you notice, again, Reagan is crowned the king of the new conservative movement in America. He ran on small government, deregulation, right? He ran on harsher crimes for harsher punishment for lesser crimes. He was the law and order president. He was the laissez-faire president. He's a small government, and that government should stay out of the markets. Stop interfering with the markets.
How are you smaller government but increasing regulations and increasing tougher sentences for crime at the same time?
And see, the whole time, nobody's realizing something, right? If you really believe in laissez-faire, if you really believe in free market capital,
you would let the drug market do what it does.
There's no better example of free market capitalism than a street dealer.
Yeah. Now,
absolutely
before
correct.
Hey, what's going on, Aries, man? Go ahead, man. You got the floor. Welcome.
Well, I'm honored to be amongst such highly intelligent and enlightened men. I'm here to speak and, more importantly, learn. But to piggyback off of what Cerulean was saying, that is the absolute truth about the street game. The street game, especially with crack cocaine, there is no power structure. There is no regulation of the crack game. It is the purest form of capitalism in a free market. So, as a matter of fact, I believe there's a book. Is it Freakonomics that speaks to the correlation between the dope game, the crack game, or the drug game, and the principles of business. Mm-hmm. So that's my part.
I mean, like literally, there is no purer form of capitalism. There is no cronyism. Why is there no cronyism? Why is it that there's so cronyism in the street?
Because survival of the fittest. It is the purest form of Darwinism.
Not only that, because your next cell is not promised to you. Your next sale could have been gotten by a competing dealer, and there'd be nothing you could do about it. But try to find more clientele. You have to do all of your own work. You don't have any government protections, right? No government protections. No safety net other than the one that you create yourself.
Now, I have a question. So are you saying that capitalism in itself, because you got to get a kit, right? You got to pay into the kit, is a pyramid scheme all its own?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Capitalism is based on the greater sucker theory. And as a matter of fact, it really became an even a harsher game, one that was more deceptive after America leaves the gold standard. Why? Because the motherfuckers over there at this private bank called the Federal Reserve, they can print all the dollars that they fucking want.
And you know the beauty of this, right? The Federal Reserve, is actually not a federal institution. They have the right to print money for the U.S. government, and then they loan this money to the U.S. government. But who ends up paying this back? And this is going to tie back into the problem we had with population earlier. The people who end up paying it back are the 95% and below of taxpayers, of the population, who make, less than $200,000 a year roughly. And everybody there and below ends up paying a higher percentage of their earnings in taxes than that top 5%. But it gets better, because when you have population dropping, right? You see, the Federal Reserve loans this money to the U.S. government at interest. The only way to actually catch up on that interest is to have your population grow. Therefore, you have a higher tax base to pay the interest on the money that you purchase, right?
And now you see why you have these massive immigration policies, where you're talking about 30 million.
Yeah, you got to move 30 million people in, because those people are going to be taxpayers if they become legal.
And see, and what happened was the government, not just the government, let's just stop saying the government, the corporations that maneuvered the government into giving them the money that they never kept the contractual agreement up, right? Corporation pushes government, says, give me these contracts so I can do this function that you need for society, right? That's whether it's to build low income, moderate income project housing. That's where if you need infrastructure build outs, gas stations in rural areas, right? Because we have to keep this machine called America fueled, and we got to make sure that there's a gas station every so many miles so that your trucks that are on the road delivering these goods and services have a way to make their trip virtually nonstop.
Do you remember when they used to show the fuel taxes? And do you remember when they stopped showing the fuel taxes based on the state and federal fuel taxes? So as the taxes continued to go up, they actually started not showing the taxes. They just included it in the price of the gas. So it used to be something like 14 cents and 9/10 of a cent was your tax for fuel. And now you're actually paying something like 50 cents of your fuel in taxes, and you're not aware of it.
Yeah.
But it gets better, because, this is all infrastructure that's necessary for growth, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to get this immigration policy. We're going to cut off the abortion clinics, right? Or we're going to make abortion illegal at the state level, right? So we can increase the amount of, people having children, so that we can have a higher tax base. And you know what there's a definition of slavery, right? Slavery is 100% tax on the earnings or the production of a person. And interestingly enough, when you go to jail, you don't get paid, but they make you work.
Well, what crueler version or what crueler iteration of slavery is there than someone who gets paid to do virtually slave labor. And in fact, why do you think you keep hearing these white supremacist talking heads when the topic of reparations or slavery come up? You always hear them talk about how well those slaves was treated.
Yeah, you know what's interesting about that? They also say that, we were never slaves, even though if you consider that the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment actually allow for slavery in the event of someone is being incarcerated, there are actually many black people in today's world who have been enslaved at the government and policy level
No,
by
see,
the prison system.
here's what I'm saying, right?
Mhm.
America is in a sharper decline where there's more unemployment in 2021 than there was in the Great Depression. Okay? Like,
Mhm.
so what I'm saying is, where were we before? We just had a brave.
Yeah. No, it's just flowing. Just keep going. It's flowing. Because matter of fact, what I'm gonna do right now, because we're going to move forward a little bit. But what I'm going to do right now is we got to pay these bills, right? So we got to do our announcements. If you gentlemen give me a second here, so we got to do these announcements because we gotta support our other esteemed members of this wonderful structure that we have over here in the said regime. So we're going to talk about our elder that's coming up. So we have Classic R&B Jams Radio, the Sunday Backyard Barbecue, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, where the elder, our supreme elder, DJMuziq, gets on the ones and twos. You can twerk in the chat. The link to CRBJ is in the description on the stream. If you watch the replay, please click that. Also, please click that. This is a video. I can't play it because there's copyrighted music in there. Also, and we also are going to play a couple of things here. Right? We're going to play a couple of things here. We're going to play 2 videos. We ain't going to keep you so long, people. You know what I mean? So, people, because I know y'all want us to get back to the topic. And here we go.
This is Char Willie from the JustaskChar Advice channel on YouTube. Join me every Friday night at 9:30 p.m. Central Standard Time for an open panel discussion. You'll find myself, Classic Ruby, and others giving our honest opinion, giving several examples, and problem solving. If you have an email for advice, you can send it to JustaskChar@gmail.com. Hope to see you soon. Peace.
Okay, so we have JustaskChar, her advice channel. That will be happening tomorrow. Okay, it's an open panel. You can come in. It's always wonderful. Please also do, if you have, you want some advice, we talk about it. Char never mentions the person's name, never goes into detail, but we give our take after she gives her advice. And it's a great time. Make sure you show up on time because Char don't play because she ain't playing. All right, so she starts on time and she ends on time. All right, and then we have one more. We have one more here. And hold on one second.
Join Char Willie and Classic Ruby for their radio show, Keep the Beat. They broadcast every Wednesday night at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on CRBJ, Classic R&B Jams. There are discussions of the songs, and that can take you back down memory lane. If you missed the live broadcast, no worries. Replays are uploaded on Mixcloud. So, follow JustaskChar Advice channel on Mixcloud and you will receive the notification when these broadcasts are uploaded.
Sir. All right. All right. All right. All right. Hold on. Gotta find it. Gotta find it. So please check that out. So we have Just Ask Char Advice Channel on Friday. We have article reactions on Saturday. We have Backyard Barbecue with the Supreme Elder DJ Music. We have that also on Sunday. Then we have Keep the Beat on Wednesdays. Also, before that, we have On the Beat with our Supreme Elder DJ Music and Char Willie, where they'll talk about a topic, play the music that is associated with the topic. So it's a wonderful experience. Go check that out, please. Go check that out, please. All right, back to your regularly scheduled programming. Now, we're not so when we this the title of the stream is the initiative and what about the military thing or whatever what about the military thing, and the reason why I think they're pushing for more black people to be in the military is because they can't trust the dominant society because they're doing stuff like this. Let me bring up this article. Now we know that the white supremacists ran up and and Savage 4-5 was saying it was Antifa, Antifa this, Antifa that. But what about that Boogaloo boys? Well, they're cracking down and they're cracking down hard, right? So this is what's happening. Did you know that on March the 3rd, Wednesday, feds arrested white supremacist live streamer in dawn raid, rattling supporters? Now remember, they raided his house at dawn, but they broke in and raided Breonna Taylor's house at nighttime. Okay, here we go. The FBI arrested a notorious white supremacist live streamer in an early morning raid in Florida on Tuesday. FBI agent, shout out to the FBI. FBI agent.
Those CIA guys. I got something to show you now.
Working with Lauderdale police and the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force arrested Paul N. Miller, 32, on one charge of being a convicted felon in possession of a firearm. The FBI said in a press release that Miller was arrested without incident. How did they raid his place, arrest him without incident? Miller's neighbors in Fort Lauderdale Riverside neighborhood reported hearing flashbangs. Wow. So they kicked in the door, disorientated him with flashbangs. During the raid, which took place around 5 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, local TV station NBC6 reported the neighbor describing seeing law enforcement officers carrying out a box appeared to have a shotgun on the front of it or an AK. Miller, who goes by the name of Gypsy Crusader online, has amassed more than 40,000 followers on Telegram, a messaging app and social media network popular with far-right extremists. I didn't even know that existed, but let's continue. Many of Miller's videos featured him dressing up as a character like the Joker or Nintendo's Mario, then hurling racial abuse at strangers, including children, through the randomized chat app Omegle. Miller can be seen holding a gun in some of his videos. A grand jury indicted Miller on firearms charge on February 25th, according to the court records unsealed Tuesday. Miller is charged with illegally possessing a gun on January 17, 2018. The indictment doesn't describe the 2018 incident, which Miller allegedly had the firearm. Miller's Tuesday arrest sent shockwaves through the internet extremist circles. Miller had recently sold patches promoting his channel to his supporters. With his arrest, raising fears among other extremists that the FBI could access his customer files and find out their own names and addresses. In messages captured by the extremist researcher Hillary Sargent, Miller's supporters worried about the possibility that they could soon become the FBI targets themselves. If convicted, Miller faces up to 10 years in prison on the gun charge. Now, we know he's not going to get 10 years, but this is the shock and awe rattle the cage tactic. Now, you gentlemen are free to weigh in.
Well, see, this is one of those things that happens after January 6th, and they realize that their real threat is not the black identity extremists, but the white supremacists, so the white identity extremists, the guys who actually have been committing domestic terror on U.S. soil for hundreds of years. And by the way, these domestic terrorists, that's what we're going to call them because that's what they are. These are the very same people who infiltrated the military and actually gave the Taliban a route for a battalion because they were racist and they wanted to get that battalion that had black soldiers attacked. These are the same white supremacists we're talking about, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The white supremacists who commit treason against the country, right? But don't get charged with treason, right? Or don't even get shot like the treasonous people they are. They get the flashbacks, but it's all good, right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just making sure that we're on the same page about these same people.
I'm going to step in and play a little bit of devil's advocate before I make this position. Let me first of all go on the record saying that Breonna Taylor's death was a murder.
Yes.
That's just what it was. But with that being said, the comparison between the killing of Breonna Taylor by state level officers, those who I believe state troopers or state police, versus the FBI, the federal officers who I feel might be better trained. That might be one tactic. That might be one major difference. But the bigger difference I feel is Breonna Taylor's life, in their eyes, had no merit. There was no bartering with that. But with this gentleman right here, if they did that major operation, they kicked in his door and only put one charge on him, that's just to get him to talk. And also, and because of that, I mean, they really was just trying to get to access his files. And he's going to flip because, to be honest with you, if he has a damn good attorney, he might get that charge thrown out. But nevertheless, it's the access to the files that I feel that they were trying to get to, and they were just using anything so it's strategic. In other words, that was the reason why they used flash bangs and whatnot. I feel because he needed to be alive. And that's just my position. Now, again, I received pushback well, so
No.
That's similar to the way the expeditions work, right? Remember VBSS? You take at least one alive.
Hey, what they say? What is that thing? Remember the Pirates of the Caribbean? Dead man tell no tales. You remember he would keep one alive. He'd kill the whole crew, but keep one alive.
Now, I hear what you're saying, but at the same time, this is the very same FBI that killed.
Shut up, yeah, now.
Now, this is the very same FBI that killed the leader of the Black Panthers. So when they want to kill somebody, they kill somebody, but they didn't want to kill this guy.
And that's what I was saying. Like, and that's what I said. Aries made a great point, and I agree totally what he's saying. And he is right. He's saying Breonna Taylor's life, because they wanted to finish the investigation, because the man in question that they were looking for, they had him in custody already. So they needed, if she died, they could finish up and wrap up the investigation, because obviously she didn't have anything, and they found out that he didn't have anything. So they had to release him and let him go.
What I find interesting is this: who said that because who Breonna Taylor was dating is what got her killed?
Oh, we know who said that. We know who said that.
He was dating Kenneth Walker. I say that he deserves at the very least, a Medal of Valor.
Oh no, not him. The ex-boyfriend that they were looking for. That's it, and she wasn't dating him for 2 years.
That's to take the establishment's word, who has already been caught trying to manufacture evidence, already caught on candid camera, going in to try to clean up, literally, like they're tainting a crime scene in that footage where they're going around picking up their shells. You're tainting a crime scene. You're not supposed to touch that shit.
Well, here's the thing, Cerulean. right? We know that, but there was one of those, and we know it true because he proved himself. One of those derelict Negro males that was on a panel that said this.
Which one was it? Was it
He,
Suspicious Lion?
yes.
See, yeah, I knew that was going on, dude. I knew that was had to go in on, dude. But look, we're gonna keep it pushing. You know,
Yeah, we gonna keep it pushing. But
I'll follow that in my memory bank for whenever I see him.
yeah, I'm actually our esteemed lady, JustaskChar, asked him a question, and he thought that she was an attorney when she asked him a question. She has that effect on people. Because I was there, and she asked him a question, and we had a conversation about it. We had a conversation about it. So, and he was trying to bring up personal choice and make better choices. There's that. But we shall digress and move forward off of that piece of information. But we'll get back to this guy right here.
You know what I find funny about that is that I did ask that dude whether he went to the military or jail, right? Because he's saying all this self-help shit from like the 90s, Don LaPree. Like, I placed these tiny ads in newspapers all over with self-help. And he said he went to jail. So now I'm a person that thinks, okay, if you were in a certain situation, you got out of that situation and you turned around a new leaf where you're in a much healthier situation. You shouldn't have to pay for the past fucking situation for the rest of your life. Now, because he said some shit like that, now I find everything that he says after that is incredulous, because this is a guy that went to the slabber. But continuing on.
I got one more retard I have to add to this. He stated that he made that comment, and he also stated that he's implying that if you eliminated this drug dealing boyfriend out of the equation, then there'll be a different outcome. And I say to him, what you would get probably would have been Sandra Bland.
Right.
So you take because Sandra Bland, I need to know who she dated before they killed her. Again, by state.
Now, for us on the panel and for those in the chat, but for those in the clouds, like, we know who she is, and the people in the chat that are typing, they know who she is. But can you elaborate? Bring it back up, because we know about Breonna Taylor, we know about Ahmaud Arbery, we know about Bokum John, and we know about George Floyd. But can you, just bring it back so people can.
Sandra Bland, Sandra, let me get her name correct, even though R.I.P. Sandra Bland was a young professional, approximately 24-year-old young lady, beautiful young lady, who was just pulled over in the great state of Texas one night. And she was handcuffed and brought in, I believe, for drug driving. I don't even know what the charge was that landed her, but I promise you that it was Trump up. And matter of fact, I'm speaking on this. I need to actually research to give the accurate information on why she was arrested, but she was perfectly fine. She did a mugshot, and a couple of weeks later, she was found dead. Now, I just need to know what drug dealer had access to her in her jail cell for her to die in that jail cell.
And see, and this is where, on this notion, right? Because these things happen to Black people all the time, and we see the difference. And I want to show the correlation, right? Now, I want to bring this up to you, gentlemen, because I want to get your take on this, right? We have another article here, right? Everybody knows, and I'm glad that Aries brought this up, man. Y'all like read my mind. Y'all are in my mind, right? Because we're going to talk about the great state of Texas, right? We're going to talk about the University of Texas, right? So this was in the news just recently. I'm pretty sure it might have crossed our guys' radar, but for the people that are watching and for the people that are in the chat, let me bring this up. This is sports, okay? All right. So this is March 4th. Texas players say they were forced to stay on the field for the Eyes of Texas after donor threats. Now, the Eyes of Texas is a alma mater song for the University of Texas that has a lot of racial tones to it, blatantly racist tones. A meeting between Texas football players and officials last October has taken on a new light in wake of the release of several donor emails supporting the embattled The Eyes of Texas school song. Two Texas players have told the Texas Tribune, Kate McGee, that the athletic department officials told them that they had to remain on the field for The Eyes of Texas sing along with fans before the meeting. Several donors had been upset after the players chose to skip the post-game sing along, with some threatening to pull financial contributions to the university over the matter. During the meeting, the officials relayed threats from angry donors that the players could face difficult employment prospects if they continued to protest the song, which has racist roots as part of a minstrel show. One player account via the Tribune. They said, y'all don't have to sing it, but y'all have to stay on the field. Y'all have to go over there and at least show the fans appreciations for coming out and watching you guys play, said a junior linebacker, DeMarvin Overshone, in a Tuesday phone interview. It was really eye-opening, Overshone said. These are high-powered people that come to see you play, and they can keep you from getting a job in the state of Texas. It was shocking that they said that. To this day, I still think back to that moment. They really used that as a threat to get us to try to do what they want us to do. He kept saying, these guys provided this for you. He was mentioning, we have donors talking about pulling out money from the South End Zone Stadium Additions project, stopping their donations, the second player said. The unnamed player reported told the Tribune that the former head coach, Tom Herman, the athletic director, Chris Del Conte, were the officials relaying the donor threats. Those accusations come 2 days after Texas safety Caden Stearns tweeted basically the same story on Monday when the donor emails became public. My teammates and I got threatened by some alumni that we would have to find jobs outside of Texas if we didn't participate, right? And this is what he said right here, right? So the Texas officials claim they weren't forcing players to sing The Eyes of Texas. The existence of this meeting was already known. Del Conte himself discussed the meeting back in October. However, the accounts of Del Conte and Herman differ significantly from these latest accounts. In one newsletter, Del Conte claimed he had simply outlined his expectations for the team via Dallas Morning News. I do want to clarify that I have had many conversations with our head coaches outlining my expectations that our team show appreciation for our university fans and support by standing together as a unified group for the Eyes while we work through this issue. Herman also denied that his team had been issued a mandate, with the involvement in the sing-along still voluntary. However, it played out. The results was clear. Texas players stayed on the field for the next week's game against Baylor. When approached with players' last accounts, Deontay again denied that any player was forced to stay on the field. We simply asked for their help. No one was forced or required to do so, he said in a statement. I never said this, nor would I say this to a student athlete, and never heard it from any donors of alumni. My message has consistently been about unity. I'm disappointed if anything anyone else said to our student athlete caused them to feel this way. That concerns me, he said in an email statement. I've talked to several student athletes about this, and I'm happy to talk to anyone to let them know this is not true. I've only seen our alumni work to support our student athletes. This back and forth is the latest episode of the saga that has been raging in Austin since last summer, when the Texas athletes publicly requested the song be replaced in wake of the killing of George Floyd. Then and now, request was met with a vocal response from alumni and other residents of Texas. Eventually, Longhorn players were openly skipping the sing-along, leading to the emails such as the one published by the Texas Tribune. It is sad that it's offending the blacks. As I said before, the blacks are free, and it's time for them to move on to another state where everything is in their favor. Texas denounced those emails as a few extremist views but it sure appears that the athletic officials involved may have reacted by giving those extremists exactly what they wanted. You guys' take.
What the fuck? There are so many. Cerulean, go ahead, because I have so many angles I can get attacked from this. Go
Oh
ahead.
yeah, you got time. We got time.
4 words. $40 million slave.
Mm.
Ooh.
Hold on. So you're saying
that's a dangerous statement.
Oh, you talking about the NCAA makes how much money? Hold on, Cerulean. Hold on. NCAA. So we need to pull up NCAA net worth. Okay, so the NCAA had a 1.12 billion in revenue for the fiscal year ending August 31st, 2019, according to its newly released audited financial statement. Of the amount of 840 million came from the CBS Turner deal. The NCAA built a 400 million safety net, then spent it. This is Texas men's basketball. Okay, and this is Austin, so we're going to bring the receipt. And Cerulean, you can continue because I want to put this up on the screen right here. Right here, I'm gonna put this up on the screen because we bring receipts.
You talk about college,
and this is basketball. This is not even football. And we know Texas is a what? It's a football state, right? So Hokum.com by Austin American Statesman. NCAA. NCAA built a 400 million safety net, then spent it. Now this is March 16th, 2020.
I'll put it this way. Why do I say $40 million slave?
Billion.
No. See, I'm saying $40 million slave because that's the name of a book.
What's the name of the book there, Cerulean?
That's the name of the book, $40 million slave.
That's the actual title.
Okay, 40.
Now, it refers to those in professional sports.
Amazon.
But see, when you really look at where the $40 million slave is groomed, primed, trained at before he enters the plantation to pick masses cotton or pigskin, whatever material you think is worth more. He is groomed right there in that institution, upper academia, the universities, the college circuits, making billions of dollars, not getting paid a red cent. And guess what? Only 2% of them even have a chance of making it pro. It is a pyramid scheme like you have never seen.
No, I even take that a step further. If that 2% only have a chance of making it pro, what about those who do make it pro? And at the end of their time being pro, the amount of money they have, a lot of them end up broke. Why? Because it is that pyramid scheme.
Now you can get this book on Amazon. You can get it on Kindle for $5.23. It's free with your Audible trial for nothing. It's free, right? Or you can get the paperback for $12.30 on Amazon. Hey, I'm not sponsored by Amazon. I'm just showing you where you can get it. I wish I was sponsored by Amazon. Man, but go ahead.
I feel that this situation is highly troubling because of, well, the best way for me to look at this is an example of why our black football players need to be going to HBCUs. I think that once I would have heard that, I think that Texas Southern and Prairie View would have gotten a lot better, because all of the players from the University of Texas, all black players, should immediately ask for their transfers from that team. Because let's cut the shit. They can talk about the blacks, but the blacks are the reason why they come, because of the talent pool that the blacks bring. All right. That's number one. Number two, this song, it parallels to the national anthem in that craze. I think that when people get wrapped up in the patriotism and the tradition of a song, they lose sight of what is the real meaning of why they're supposed to be there. They're supposed to be there to look at a football game, not to simply revel in old nostalgia and at the behest of using these black boys as a minstrel show. It comes off as a minstrel show if I'm forced to be on stage against my will for the entertainment and pleasure of rich white people. That's just what it is.
Well, it's not even just a minstrel show. When you are sacrificing your body, your limb, your head to concussion, cranial trauma,
Right.
and encephalopathy, right? We are talking about, these are men who, even though they're paid a certain amount of money, there is no amount of money that can pay somebody to end up in a wheelchair at the end of their career.
Now, I do say this, right? Now, we're going to talk about black excellence. Wasn't it a black man that actually brought it to the NFL to show the effects of CTE in the NFL?
Yes, an African
Yes.
African doctor.
African doctor.
Yes, I forgot. Of course, I have trouble pronouncing his name, but it's Will Smith actually played him in the movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Excellent movie.
Now I want to show this, right? So you saw those players. That's what they said. So we had a thing at a high school game in Oklahoma. Would you guys want to hear about this?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. Now I am. Now this is me, right? Sometimes that peaceful protest and stuff just don't get things done, right? You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? Shout out to my, like Marshawn Lynch said about that work, boss. Shout out to my real Africans out there. So a fight breaks out after Oklahoma high school students engage in racist taunting of black basketball players on the opposing team. Right? This news article came out Thursday, March 2021. Okay? So I've said it before and I'll say it again. A lot of people need to get out of their heads that racism will go away once older generations of white people die off. The fact is, those generations of white people raise children, and a lot of those children are turning out to be racist at AF themselves. In fact, last time I brought this up, it was a reference to a story about a black middle school student in Oklahoma who said his teacher went full KK Kern over his Black King t-shirt and started ranting about how America needs White History Month, a sentiment that black students said was shared by the majority of his white classmates, who immediately sided with the teacher and all of her white nonsense. I like that KK Karen. I like that. That's good. That's good. Right? Now, now we have another story of youthful racism coming out of Oklahoma. This time it happened during a high school basketball game. The Oklahoman reports that last Thursday, a fight broke out between students from Newcastle High School and students from a predominantly black John Marshall High School after a Class 4A regional playoff basketball game between the two schools. The fight was reportedly prompted by racial slurs and abuse committed by the white Newcastle students against the black players from the opposing team. That means they were beating them down. That means they was dunking on them, doing all kinds of stuff. You know, black people, we like to show off, right?
Right. So, like, they're niggers. What do you expect us to do?
You know what I'm saying? So Newcastle.
I mean, can you blame them? Because
nah, I can't blame them.
I can't blame these white kids for being upset. Because the beautiful thing about African Americans throughout this history is we make the hardest thing look so easy.
And
Especially
this is exactly what we do in the military as well. Bringing it back to the.
that is exactly. Go ahead, continue, brother. It's just what it is.
I mean, you familiar with the Black Panther Regiment that actually, that, you know, they were like, oh, these black men can't read, right? But they went over there and stole German tanks,
Mm-hmm.
stole and drove, commandeered German tanks and drove them.
That is
Harlem Hellfighters.
Well, that is referred to the 761st Tank Battalion, World War II. They would literally commandeer German panzers whenever their tanks would run out of fuel. If they got hit by a rocket fire, if it went off tread, the idea was to commandate somebody else's tank, prefer panzer, not even knowing how to read, let alone read German.
Now, so the Newcastle students prompted the flight with a vile, racist, and derogatory taunt, saying Paula Lewis, chairperson of the Oklahoma City Public School Board of Education. Lewis said the fight that ensued was deeply unfortunate, but it was caused by racist insults going unchecked during and after the game. I said this clearly. Our kids and our staff, our parents, and our supporters should never have to face being subjected to racial attacks and slurs at any school and event, Lewis said in a written statement. Our kids should not feel they have to fight to defend themselves. John Marshall student body and basketball team are predominantly black. Newcastle superintendent Mallory Howe, this is among, issued an apology Tuesday and said racial slurs are intolerable. Officials from both schools met Monday night to share information from their respective investigations to discuss how to move toward reconciliation. However, Howe said referees at the game reported hearing no slurs until after play ended and the players were leaving the court. I just won't be me if I didn't point out all the reasons Howe needs to STFE. So now there was a video, and I can't find the video. Oh, here it is. Here it is. I'm gonna show y'all the video. Can y'all see it? Can y'all see the video? Yes. Hold on. Let me see if I can get this on the Twitter. Let me see if I can get this on the Twitter. Right. Let me expand this. Can I expand this? Okay, I can expand it out. Yeah, buddy. Can y'all see it?
Yeah.
Let me look at the chat. Chat. Can y'all see it on the screen? All right. Let me give it full screen. Right? Now, this is where I'm talking about the community standing up. And when I mean standing up, you're going to see these black fathers or these black men in there defending these young men and these women. All right? Now, this is what we call integrity and black men standing up for the community. And that is a community at large, right? Here we go. Look at them. Did you see the white boy get slumped? Right? Look. You saw half the crowd. You saw them running. Look at that. You saw how they got out of that quick? Look. Let's bring it back. Now you see this brother right here? Look what he did. He came over the railing. Look at his brother. He tossed somebody. Right? See that right there? Look at that. Look at that right there. Look at that. I think that's a sister right there caught somebody. Oh, look. You see it? You see him? He wasn't ready.
He was not tossing him. He was just assisting him in moving him to a safer environment. He was being helpful and hospitable.
It's not my fault that he's got a jaw like a champagne glass.
Hey, look. Uh-oh. Somebody. Hey, we know what that is. Somebody got caught. They're getting stomped out in the corner.
I mean, you got to think about this, right? Not only do you get your ass kicked in the game, but you get your ass kicked in real life. That ain't worth it, man. That ain't worth it.
Now look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Oh my God, what happened? So I'm gonna stop it right there. You gentlemen cleared to weigh in on that?
Thad, I'm sorry.
Deserved?
Thad, I'm so sorry.
Deserved.
How? What other names do we have? Preston. Any name associated with. I'm just saying. It's just. I'm so sorry.
I mean, I'll tell you this.
From all the Tyrones and Jamals in the world, we are definitely sorry, Thad, for
No,
you taking those L's.
We're not sorry. Okay. Look, I'm tell you this. If you rewind that back, that should look like a scene right out of a 70s Batman comic. Big, boom, pow, swoop. Yeah.
But what I want to point out is you saw how they made sure that they secured the exit, all of those students, and they got the women out of there, and those men stayed right there, and they had to exit. And they stayed there on the front line. They didn't waver. They was ready to fight that whole gym and put their bodies on the line.
Hey, where else do black men hold the line? I'm not saying that you meant for this to be advertising for your topic, right? But it's there.
Well, see, I've always been the guy that said that the nonsense a lot of times that you hear on YouTube ain't reflective of real life. In fact, even you have to look at the numbers that a lot of the crazies spew because it doesn't reflect real life. This reflects real life.
Yes.
Because this is the average. That is the average of what you see if you live around black folk.
And that's not and to clarify, that's not violence. That's fatherhood, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
That's defending my children from a hostile crowd. That's not violence, in my opinion.
Now I'm gonna keep reading the last parts of this. Of course, the letter also rightfully mentioned that the fight could have been much worse if black people hadn't shown so much restraint in the face of blatant racism. Oklahoma coaches, parents, teachers, adults failed these kids, Lewis said. The Oklahoma reports, I will not ask them to be accountable to a system that isn't accountable to itself. We must do better and intend to see that we do. Now now this system is breaking down, and black people always held to this high moral standard that we walk with it. As much as people want to say on this small modicum of the loud minority in YouTube, in black YouTube, most black people, for the most part, hold themselves to a higher standard, and it is the system itself of the supremacy of the dominant society that keeps it boot heel on the backs of both black men and black women. Stop, comma, pause, end quote. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead.
But of course, I mean, it's similar to the narrative that we have to work twice as hard to go half as far. So we are built, and we know that we have to govern ourselves accordingly. We have to hold ourselves to a high standard.
And see, my thing is this: is like right now, you are watching. As a matter of fact, you didn't do anything, by the way. Like all of this shit that's happening to these people, like they fucked themselves into a corner. Okay, they fucked themselves into a corner. They bet on the long game. They lost. They're going to lose. And what you see now is a bunch of seats at a very powerful table with a lot of vacant slots.
Mm-hmm. Now, so since we're on that, right? You know what I mean? Because okay, that's enough with the thing. Because people are getting upset and getting in their feelings, and they like, good. You know what I'm saying? Since I'm not over here talking about what about these black mamas, you know what I'm saying? Since I'm not doing that, because I don't do that. Now we're gonna talk about something happily, right? Now this is the counterparts of us across the pond. Okay, so this is we can look at this two ways, and I would like to hear you guys' take. I know the chat's going to go off with this because the last time I brought up a Barbie doll, it was ridiculous, right? The last time I brought up a Barbie doll, it was goddamn ridiculous, right? You know what I'm saying? Or if it was brought up, I think our esteemed Char Willie and Classic Ruby brought it up. But British DJ and anti-racism advocate Clara Umfo, right, gets her own Barbie doll. This is the sister in question right here. Y'all can see her right here. London, toy maker Mattel has unveiled a Barbie doll in the likeness of British presenter Clara Umfo, who made an emotional speech on her BBC radio show following the death of George Floyd ahead of International Women's Day. The 36-year-old DJ, who was named a UK Barbie role model, spoke about her own mental health when she made an on-air call to tackle racism after the death of Floyd, a black man in police custody last May, sparked anti-racism protests against police brutality in the United States and around the world. Once again, black Americans, ADOS, once again, are showing the charge and people are taking our lead. End quote that one, right? There is a false idea that racism and its case of anti-blackness is just a name calling and physical violence when it's so much more insidious than that, she said in her speech which went viral. Umfo featured in the September issue of British Vogue magazine, which celebrated activists vocal in issues including the Black Lives Matter movement, poverty, gender inequality. To say that I am honored to be named the Barbie role model would be an understatement, Umfo said in statements. Now, to me, how is this powerful? Because when we were growing up, little black girls did not have their likeness out there. They would walk around with little white Barbie dolls, right? So if it's done in this woman's image, it is her and her hair and who she is and her blackness. So this is, I think, a positive thing on that scope. You guys can free to weigh in.
Well, yeah, if you listen to a bumbling idiot like, say, a Larry Elder or a Thomas Sowell, and they say that there is no significant causal effect slavery had on today's black Americans. And the fact that this young lady has to literally fight with the system that was designed, right, to enslave people like her, to keep people like her disenfranchised, to whitewash her image and likeness, to where all that is left is a shell filled with all of the mass media and false interpretations of beauty, to where she ends up trying to spending her life trying to erase that. Why is this little girl's fight if something that was started during the times of slavery and she has to fight it in 2021?
Mm-hmm.
And then they tell you, oh, you have some derelict mentally ill Negro like Herschel Walker tell you, well, I don't think black people need reparations because I played football. Dude has multiple personality disorders. What personality was testifying at the reparation hearings? Furthermore, why is it that nobody finds it insulting that a Negro with multiple personality disorder is testifying about something that we need the black community to redistribute the wealth so we can expand the middle class? Why? In order to survive. This is our country. To the point where what they don't even understand is that I tried to explain this to a certain someone on another someone's panel. Causality. Now, if you can't see why there is a necessity for something like reparations, and then you're watching something that was created during slavery and it still exists today as a legacy, a remnant, to where her life would have been destigmatized if her or her family didn't speak out or was shamed and cajoled into shutting up about the people that made the unfair rule, kind of like what the Coons do, like the Larry Elders and the Candace Owenses.
And anybody else got a take?
Well, it's the case of American-led movement on race actually impacting the rest of the world, but at the same time, it also goes to show that these companies, they're now wanting to get in good with the American black people, right? After years of oppressing us, after years of taking advantage of us, you always remember the black Barbie doll didn't have black textured hair, or what could be considered a standard black textured hair, right?
Yeah,
because
like the last.
And the black Barbie doll also didn't have a black woman's shape either.
No, actually, that latest Barbie doll that they tried to come out with looked like the Gorilla Glue Girl, literally. So
you're talking about the Barbie doll with the baby hairs?
Yeah, with the baby hairs. Yeah, you know what I'm saying.
But see, it's like they're making caricatures of our culture, of stereotypes with our culture, and laughing at us.
Yeah. So Ruby says this, right? And I see your point. The effect of those dolls in places like Britain and Canada will be largely based on whether it's abandoned on the shelves by the major population or not. To be honest, who we got here? Oh, Ruby's here. Go ahead, Ruby. Unmute yourself. Go ahead.
Hello. Good evening, gentlemen.
Hello. Good evening.
Hello. I thought I should at least, explain my message because, I'm not American. And so I can think of, when, for example, Skipper, Barbie's little sister, when she came out, like that was the closest thing to a black Barbie at the time, at least here. And so, all the little black girls wanted to get that one because at least it's got some color to it. But when they came out with a black Barbie here, okay, I can get a Barbie that's black, that looks like you, that looks like my mom or whatever. But it's like when the rest of the population, because we're 3% of the total population here, so there are no black schools, black neighborhoods, black communities like that, right? So then I finally get the black Barbie. I'm so excited about it. I don't have any little girls in my family around my age. And then, okay, girls come over to play at my house or something, they don't want that Barbie, or their mom said that Barbie is not for them, and stuff like that. And it's just like little flippant things that white women tell their little girls, but then they pass that on. So then you go into the store, and the more black dolls that there are available, if they're being abandoned on the shelves, then you're kind of like, okay, so then I'm extra ugly. Like I just thought I was ugly before because there was no representation of me. But now when it's available and it's literally being abandoned, and little girls would rather go home with no Barbie because the shelves are all cleared out versus have that one black Barbie, that's like it it's even more damaging in a way. And like
It's subliminal
there was
messaging.
right, the messaging is almost stronger and worse. And for like a limited time, like I don't know, I guess it's when feminism first started its third wave or so. They were all about it. Oh, I'm getting all of my little Caucasian kids black dolls only and stuff like that, right? So there was like a moment where they were doing it, but I think that's mostly petered out. So I don't know. I don't know, but this whole British connection, like I don't know. I mean, it would be great, I guess, if the world was literally acting like, oh, all these Barbies are equal. And so yeah, I'm just gonna grab my kids a few Barbies, with the black one and the Asian one and a couple of the white ones, and call it a day. But I don't think that's what's gonna happen. So and then when that happens, which is even worse, so you see that happen, and then 6 months later, you'd have to drive like 2 hours to that one Walmart that carries the black one, because the other Walmarts around you aren't going to carry it because they can't sell it, right? So I don't know. I kind of see these things as being problematic in Canada, in Britain, places like that.
As a man, I always looked at the Barbie doll as not only the rejection of Black women's skin tone, but their body type. Because every Barbie was a slim, no waist, small hips image. And it forced you to realize that if the takeaways would have been that all Black women are fat, all Black women are obese, and it promotes a European slender image of beauty, in my opinion.
So what you're saying is, shout out to the
Production Kyle.
CIAs and the FBI's. She got to be a
Production
size
Kyle.
6. She got to. What's your dress size? If you're not a size 6, you're not going to get a high value man. Shout out to the CIAs and the FBI's out there. That's what you basically saying.
You know what? And I will add to that, because I will say this: when you're really young, you don't care. You're not processing it on that level. Like, your thoughts aren't that deep and complex to be going like, all of my Barbies look exactly the same. They have the exact same figure, the exact same whatever. They're just dolls. So really, the representation is about the skin color, the clothing you're putting on them, maybe the hairstyle. Like, I don't think you're as deep with the body image issues when you're like 6, 7, in that age category. But at the same time, I also live somewhere where obesity is not as much of a problem, and it's only becoming a bigger problem now. It wasn't as much, regardless of race. It wasn't as much of an issue in Canada. So I don't know, but just like thin people, I was looking at your booty and your breasts and whatever, and measuring that versus real adults, and I wasn't doing all of that at 6, 7 years old.
Right.
But if maybe obesity was a bigger issue, then maybe I don't know. I guess an American woman would have to say if that had an effect on them at
Right.
like those younger ages.
But
I mean,
can I throw in here on the
Sure.
fact that you go ahead and go back to the doll test, and it actually does affect, these little subconscious things do affect internal perceptions of children.
Yes.
Where the doll goes, oh, the child goes, oh, which doll is the good doll? The white one.
White one.
Mhm.
Okay, Paul Mooney, go ahead.
Oh yeah, but see, those are, I think when you're talking about sexual traits, which is part of your figure and anatomy and stuff. But when you're talking about social traits, absolutely, because we're told we're good or bad or smart or dumb or pretty or ugly from very early ages, right? Oh, look at your pretty hair. You say it to like a baby, right? So yeah, absolutely. That's why I said like it's just the physical part of it. I'm like, I didn't process that as much, but pretty much everything else, even my value as a human to society, I felt was lesser because I saw all those black dolls on the shelf, and it's just like, yeah, like I'm not good enough to be purchased. Like, I mean, fine, small children, you don't want your small daughters wanting to be purchased, but that's the messaging, right? I mean, but then again, there was no black Ken either. So like I had this troll doll, again, brown skin, right? They're trolls, with red hair. And that was my Ken, right? I called him Kevin. And he was my Ken doll. So he was the one who was the cool, sexy guy who got to get all the girls, quote unquote, right? Like Ken was like the loser in the corner. I wasn't looking at their physicality. He was like, 2 inches tall and a troll, but he was black. So I just attributed coolness to him. Right?
As
Hold on,
long
Ruby.
as
Hold on,
as long
hold on,
as the
Ruby.
dog name last name wasn't Samuels, I'm okay with it.
See, because I was
absolutely was not. No.
okay. So I got a question, Ruby. I got a question, right? Okay.
Mhm.
So the doll name was Kevin,
Yes.
and his kneecaps were bigger than his thighs.
This
No.
is not going to go well.
I don't think remember those troll dolls? They're like half a foot tall without the hair. I don't think they have these at all. I don't think they have these, to be fair.
Was the wrist on the doll broken?
Just maybe. Maybe those kneecaps just got a little more exercise than his legs.
Jesus Christ. You see the trouble y'all get me into up here? Okay.
I'm just
So
asking if the doll had sunken eyes. I'm just asking. Yeah, just certain characteristics of this.
Are
Kevin
you
doll.
asking if this doll looked like Eeyore or Droopy the dog?
no.
In the eyes?
Listen, y'all. Stop attacking.
Okay.
Was
my
it a
Kevin
high
troll doll.
value? Was it a high value doll?
Hell yeah, he was. He had a leather jacket and leather pants on when I got it.
Okay, so
Oh, so it
maybe
wasn't a suit.
this
Okay, it wasn't a
is
suit. Okay.
Kevin. Okay, never mind.
He had a suit on, a leather jacket and leather pants, and he was an aviator. He was a pilot. So yeah, I guess he was high value.
Okay. And did it come with separately sold accessories like the thing that swings on the desk of Kevin Samuels? And I'm just asking.
No.
It's just a thought. Just
Okay.
wanted to go there.
So we're going to say this. Ruby had a doll named Kevin. Now everything extra that's added to that is us doing it.
Thank you. Okay.
All
Because
right.
no, you know what? I was just because like Ken, like my uncle's name was Ken, but Ken is obviously the name of, the white doll. So, Kevin was the only other like black K name I knew at the time, right? So it was Ken and Kevin. And then that was it, right? Like it was not this deep and serious. I was 6 years old. It was way before
Kendrick.
YouTube even started.
Kendrick
I
was
didn't know
not
no Kendricks. I didn't know Kendrick.
Hey, Keith, Keith.
right.
Keith? Yeah, Keith. He liked the
Keith?
wine. Yeah, Keith.
Oh, I hate that name. Oh, I hate that
What
name.
name?
Keith. Oh, I don't even like making my mouth to make the sound. Keith.
Hey,
Oh.
what about Keenan? You know, remember Keenan? Keenan's good. Keenan's good.
You know what?
Khalil.
Remember that my only exposure to the Wayans brothers, by and large, was on what's it called? And I wasn't even allowed to watch it in Living Color, and I wasn't even allowed to watch it because I was like 6 or 7. Remember that, like here for me growing up, the black culture I was like steeped in was Jamaican culture, right? So like I was watching like old stuff to watch.
I'm just
Any
angry
of
that
that?
nobody talked about Kwame from Captain Planet. Kwame, anybody?
By then I was over.
Now, since we come into the last portion of this, I want Ruby to still stay up here because I want to get her take on this.
Okay.
So this is the subject matter. This is the big topic subject matter of the actual stream. That's why it was named this way. We have Michael B. Jordan because that's been the subject going on. With Laura Harvey and all of that stuff. That was a big discussion. There's a big discussion everywhere on Black Twitter, and people are breaking up and are you arguing at each other and all this other craziness. But let's get to the meat and potatoes of this, is that he is going to be the star in the new Tom Clancy movie. All right. So Tom Clancy does a lot of these government conspiracy theory movies where you have that guy that's going against and doing everything and everything. So this movie, the trailer came out yesterday. So go check that out. You'll go type it in. And it's called Without Remorse. So I'm going to share the article on this. And this is the thing that we're talking about them pushing the thing, because we've seen a lot of movies lately where black men have been portrayed in the offices or the asset of the military and so forth, right? And this is to get black men to join like the police force, the armed forces, and stuff like that. Like that brother that held at bay those rioters on the Capitol so the senators and the representatives can get out safely, and the vice president, even though the vice president was racist as hell. And you know what I'm saying? But here we go. Everything you need to know about the Michael B. Jordan new Tom Clancy movie, Without Remorse. Right? You know what I'm saying? So Michael B. Jordan found himself another franchise. The Creed 2 Black Panther star has been locked into playing the Tom Clancy character John Clark for a new film series. According to Variety, Clark, along with Jack Ryan, is one of Clancy's most well-known characters from his series best-selling novels. Michael B. Jordan on training to get bigger for Apollo Creed and all that stuff. Right. Paramount Pictures is putting together a new franchise, and 2 films are expected to be developed as part of the series. According to the report, the 2 books are being adapted, including Rainbow Six and Without Remorse, both of which center on Clark. The first film being developed is Without Remorse, which will give the origin story of Jordan's character. Now, you notice this is Men's Journal. Men's Journal usually have this pretty much, for the dominant society. You notice this right here. You see this black man right here in this ad right here. You normally don't see that. You usually see a person from the palm-colored or the dominant society in these, right? So notice how it's coming. Right. So recently, Amazon debuted the first season of Jack Ryan with the Office actor John, I can't pronounce his last name, taking on the role of the iconic character. The show has already been picked for a second season and has received positive reviews. Right. So that's the guy playing Jack Ryan. So the character John Clark, a former Navy SEAL who became an operations officer for the, shout out to the CIA, you know what I'm saying, has been on the big screen before. And the character in the clear and present danger alongside Harrison Ford's Jack Ryan, while Levi Skrimber played Clark in The Sum of All Fears, which had Ben Affleck in the lead role of Ryan, right? So now this was a character that was basically played by the other side or the dominant society. Now a black man is taking the role. While nothing about the potential crossover between Ryan and Clark's and Jordan's Clark has been reported, the characters have interacted in many Clancy books over the years. The news about Tom Clancy's series makes another big development for Jordan. The actor already starred in one of the biggest movies ever, Black Panther, and he released Creed 2 later the same year. Jordan now is getting Oscar buzz for his film Just Mercy, coming out in December 2019. So here's the teaser for the film. This is on Instagram. Y'all go show it, because I'm not trying to get no copyright strikes or nothing like that. So what do you have to say about this? You know what I'm saying, panel? What are your thoughts?
In the wake of January 6th, who can we trust? Well, obviously, it wasn't the white officers who were taking selfies in the Capitol with the insurrectionists, right?
Yeah.
But guess who was leading the massive crowd away? The black man. Guess who was holding down the fort in the Capitol and actually, ended up they didn't call off that day. It was the black people in the Capitol Police. So, it's just, another sign of the times. America is forced to recognize in the wake of January 6th that black people have always been there to defend America, whether it be from the Revolutionary War, whether it be in the Gullah Wars against the natives. Black people have been their go-to super soldiers.
Yeah. I mean, that really is, but see, as far as black people and black men especially, this is why I always say that I'm not going to apologize for having confidence in my own community. I'm not. because right now we are at a critical nexus where you're watching power up for grabs. And where's that power rest? It rests in the institutions. If you notice throughout this COVID period, right, you'll notice there's a couple of entities that have literally been completely left unscathed by the onset of COVID. And those are big corporations. Now, mind you, the big corporations have the benefit of being bailed out in these socialist programs that the government gives them handouts whenever they do bad business, fail, and then go to daddy government and say, you give me some money so my enterprise can be saved. You know, shout out to GM and Nike and Chrysler, Ford, right? Who all took handouts, right? Another one of those entities is education, specifically the universities and colleges. Still thriving. I mean, do they not pay power bills? Does it not cost to keep up the grounds? Another one of those institutions is the military, like virtually unscathed. You want to know why? Because no military equals no country. But mind you, if it weren't for you, the black soldier, America wouldn't be what it is today. Because you are the one who made this country what it is. First with your labor, then with your invention that started the golden age of industrialism. Now with your sociological foundation, how to understand society, government, systems. By all intents and purposes, you're the most American. When America needed to change, it was you who made her change. Not only did you do that, but you stood up for those around the world. That's why whenever we started the initiative, we used the military as the basis, the foundation. We got hella pushback. Actually, many of those guys over there gave us a lot of pushback. And matter of fact, I heard a specific derelict Negro male who's not allowed on a specific panel anymore say it recently. And the sentiment was, you go and join that white man's military.
Now I have to ask the question in regards to that. How is it the white man's military when our taxes pay for the very same military? They take our taxes no matter what. And so actually, we're taxed at a higher rate than those rich white people.
So that means that the military is more yours than anything. But now you have to really make it yours. You have to absorb it as an institution. You know, I remember people used to misrepresent the things that I say. They'll say, you're talking about infiltrate the military. Like, you don't have to infiltrate anything. You are a citizen of this country. What are you really infiltrating? Infiltration happens from an outside entity who is not citizens of this country. That would be infiltration. But because you are an American, see, this is your shit. The military is your shit. The police are your shit. The problem is that you're letting someone with a certain ideology who really, for the most part, wants to get paid, nothing else, are incentivized to lock you up in mass because if they keep the body counts high in the jails, they get a little kickback on campaigns that keep the system rolling to make sure that those prisons that keep their beds filled to a 90% capacity, and they use these cronies in the states, because it's a states' rights issue, to keep the system reoccurring, refreshing, turning over, rolling back. So as soon as someone tries to make some change through other than, say, orthodox means, well, they're just going to, I don't know, criminalize protesting, similar to the way that they did the Black Lives Matter. Remember that when their so-called President Trump, who is nothing more than a despotic demagogue pretending to be a world leader, attempted to use the military as somehow his personal hit squad on American citizens. Mind you, this literally should have got him impeached. But that is the thing about white privilege. It could be right in front of your face, and yet those that are in power will still deny that it ever exists. And because they keep denying it, I say this is your opportunity to take it. It is. We're in 2021 where half of the women in the military right now are Black women. They'll be the majority women. They'll be the majority females by the end of this year.
Cerulean, not to cut you off, but there's something in the background playing. But not to cut in, but yeah, there's something. Yeah, continue.
Oh yeah, I hear it.
Yeah. I'm like, it was actually going with what you were saying, but it was the copyright strikes here.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was like the battle music. The battle music.
I can't control it from here, but
yeah.
There's actually a TV in the other room. I don't know why people in this house listen to TVs like they need hearing aids.
You got the floor still. Go ahead.
Sound. Why you got it up to 60? Okay. But this is a prime opportune time for Black people to start taking the power and taking their rightful seats. Now, don't get it mistaken. A damn president ain't gonna be able to do it for you. Where representation happens is at the grassroots. That means the man on the street, the man in his own community. Now, people that know me, that know me around here, they know I talk like this to them. And some of them have many of the same reactions where, like most people, like, man, I ain't trying to hear none of that educational shit. And I'm trying to see where the motherfucking party at. See, and that's the other thing too. Because that sex, drugs, and rock and roll era that the Gen Xers, that we inherited from the Gen Xers, that still exists in us today. That's why you got today, niggas won't organize for something that is going to politically, socially, and economically improve their lives over the long haul, but because they can't see the immediate return because of these short visionaries, and not only that, but this illusion that we call capitalism has made them think that I need to get this fast money. I ain't got time to be thinking about the future, right? Now you liable to tell them to come to the political rally. I'm gonna tell you this straight up: about 2/3 of them, on a consistent basis, suck their teeth at you. That's why we have adopted the policy in which we don't worry about the 2/3. Look, okay, so not everybody's going to come along with you. We don't even want everybody coming along with you because some of these people become detriments. So those that are willing to work with you, those are who you work with. And if you see people around you and they want to always try to polarize the conversation to where they're talking about Democrats and Republicans, a difference between a Democrat and Republican. Well, one oppresses you in a very kind and mild-mannered tone, and the other one oppresses you, well, in a not so nice tone. You know,
Right wing, left wing, same racist bird.
But in result of the policy, because we are living in a neoliberal existence, that means there is no policy today that gets passed without either, without both parties accepting the terms. This is why the ones that you really see them split on, the government shuts down behind it. And then what happens? New deal is struck. Oh, government's back up and running. Somebody came to a deal. Why? Because we are in the era of neoliberalism. And so as far as we as Black people, we need to operate as neoliberals. And what does that mean? That means having no loyalty to either party, only to support party on a state level that supports the kind of policies that you want. Now, you want a policy example? Plenty of policy examples. But one of the easiest ones, pipelining. They say, well, they can't discriminate and all of this and use race and yada, 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 yada. Well, I'll put it this way. The Asians do it all the time. I'm in a state where Asians do it quite on a regular basis. Tell their local alderman, they tell their city councilor of their district, we want more cops that look like us in our district. And if they have a good city councilor, the good city councilor is going to make that happen. Hell, we did it with firefighters. I have a niece that was one of the pioneers of the program for it with the firefighters here. So to tell me that you can't do it is to tell me that you've already given up. So I'll give you an example. Whenever all of these different demographic immigrant groups came here, well, they were just the Germans over there and the Russians over here, the Italians over there and the Irish over here and the Jews over there and the whoever, Slovakians and whatever. They're over there. And then when they got their chance to be white on the condition, and isn't it so funny? They actually got conditions and shit, which means they had choices. You could either help us in this war effort, the Second World War, and your reward will be, well, we'll let you into this institution called whiteness. And that will come with a kind of, I wouldn't say welfare, but definitely kind of like a Marshall Plan for you newly branded whites. And what that's going to consist of is me taking federal money, publicly collected money called taxes, and I'm going to use it to build these little things called suburbs. And then I'm going to give you a little check called a stipend, but it's for relocation assistance for you and your whole family of 13 Irish leprechauns, whatever you got there. And thus, when we're leaving World War II, and that's why you've seen the economy pick up so fast, because the government, that big government that you see a specific party keeps telling you, and they tell you like a joke, right? Like, what we want is small government. We want the government out of our lives. If you want the government out of your lives as a capitalist, why the fuck does the capitalist keep going to the government to bail them out? So, you get it? They built the white middle class. Big government did that. And now here it is. Here it is. You still seeing the evidence of slavery all around you. I mean, if we really want to talk about it, and this is the point that, when I had a brain fart earlier, if you really want to break it down by raw numbers, why do you think you keep seeing these stories where you got white people like, say, Bill O'Reilly, or what's the other guy's name? Pierce Morgan, saying, well, the slaves were, they were treated quite well. They were fed and they were clothed and they were sheltered and all these great things. Well, if you're looking at today, do you understand where this system of credit has gotten us? Where literally fiat currency has sunk economy so far. The only thing that's hiding the reality of your poverty is this thing called credit, because you can get things now that you really don't have the money for today. Just pay it as you go. It's not going to hurt anybody. No, it's not going to hurt you, but just the other people that are left in the wake, that this thing is happening for you at the expense of them. Is because you don't see the necessity to make things change. Oh, don't you see it when the white media is referring to these domestic terrorists as patriots, right? They're completely left alone. And then whenever the FBI says, hey, enough is a fucking enough, we gotta fucking hold ourselves accountable, or look, we lose all credibility in the accountability and responsibility department. All of a sudden, the media clams up. You even start seeing them give lip service. So, this domestic terrorist. It's a trigger word. They even banned QAnon. And see, I don't really like the fact that Facebook has so much power, or Instagram has that much power, or Twitter has that much power. Do you want to know why? Because what they're really doing is they're trying to erase the evidence of their complacency while this was all happening. And now it's time for you to take power. And do you want to know how you take power? The first place you start at all times is the military. And then as those that have done their time are being cycled out and back into general society, and the new crops that come behind them, and you have it working like a functional pipeline. What has happened is that even though those trainees may have only gotten 4 years, but they have literally gotten more experience and work ethic than your 4-year college guy. And it makes perfect sense. I mean, the 4-year college guy, less and less people are even wanting to go to college. Why? Because they realize it was the new debt trap. You get the new debt trap of the house.
$140,000 in student loan debt, or $60,000, anywhere between those numbers. I mean, and you don't get on the job training.
I mean, back in my parents' time, they could go to college, graduate. Well, my father didn't. He actually went to the vocational school, became a mechanic. Mother graduates, BA from Auburn. My dad got married even though they had already been dating. But the thing is that they got the house. Now the degree is the house. So you have less and less young people even wanting to go to college. They're saying screw college. Why do I need college? Why do I need $140,000 of debt weighing me down like the albatross around my neck for the next 60, 70 years till I'm laid in the ground and nobody in my family can afford to lay me in the ground? And the reason why they can't is because, well, somebody's got to pay that debt because debts live beyond your lifespan.
And they make student loans a debt that's not dischargeable by bankruptcy. So you can go bankrupt, but that student loan will still be there waiting for you at the end of bankruptcy.
Yeah, and I'm glad and I'm glad you guys said that. You know what I'm saying? I'm glad you guys said that. Cerulean dropped that. That's what I'm talking about. Salvos. Let Ruby get her 2 cents in because the producer is telling me in the corner. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying?
Okay. Well, I guess first I have to ask a quick question for confirmation. I swear it's confirmation, not complete oblivion.
Okay.
Before I give my answer. So, why are we supposed to care about that?
Oh, you talking about the Michael B. Jordan thing?
Yeah. Not everything's really said. Yeah, going back to the original article, why are we supposed to care about it?
Oh, we're supposed to care about it. I'll explain it this way. The reason why we're supposed to care about it is you have to understand that media, right, is meant for the general mass. That's not really. It's not really meant for the, you'd say, the adepts of society. It's actually meant for the wider mass. What are they trying to display? What are they really saying with it? For instance, do you remember the original 24 series?
Yes.
Do you remember that 24 series forecast?
24 Legacy?
No, 24 Legacy.
24.
The original 24, the original Bauer.
With Senator David Palmer, who became the first black president.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Do you understand that they were putting that in the media in 24, right? To forecast a 2008 run by a Barack Obama or a 2007 run by Barack Obama.
Yes, but now I guess, on the other side of that, I've seen multiple shows with multiple female presidents, and yet there's never been one. There's been a run, yes, but there's never been a female president. And so I guess so this is the way I see media, like with that, is to me, on one side, there is an importance with putting, you got to get our foot in the door, so to speak, when it comes to their media, the mass media, as far as putting us in certain types of roles and characters instead of us always being some stereotypical bullshit. And I get that part, and I felt like, when we started this 15, 20 years ago, and we were like some token character, or they took a white character everyone knows is a white character, made it black for once, or put us in these different roles. To me, that was like, pivotal, was big, and people had a lot of issues and a lot of things to say about it, and I agreed. But I'm like, now we're like 20 years late. This is not like, oh my god, I can't believe he's black. Like, this is happened how many times, like in the last 10 years alone, just with some other pivotal characters. So why is this one important?
I'll speak on that.
Can I finish real quick, Dre?
Yeah, go ahead, do it.
All right, so you have the white scientists, and not just the fields of sociology, but in actual biology, that have been studying these trends, these rates, where about every 30 years, America's birth rate starts declining. Specifically, the dominant society's birth rate starts declining, starts falling off. Only this time, it's falling off faster than the 4 previous times nearly combined. Okay? Where the scientists are suspecting that America, the United States, will become that whites will become the minority in, around, by, or even just after 2045. It is now 2021. That means they have 24 years. So another generation being born, and majority of those children are going to be non-white. And so understand, this is one of the I would say positive sides of capitalism when that karmic pendulum swings back the other way. Capitalism follows the market. And if your market 24 years from now is going to be majority non-white, and the blacks are going to be, once again, the largest minority group. As a matter of fact, the 2045, if we start populating like rabbits now, I mean, we may be able to catch up to everyone else as far as population, even have enough numbers to become the power block in this country.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And why is this? So what does this have to do with the movie? I know you're having a hard time. Is because the movie is displaying black man, masculine role, married, family, the soldier, the good soldier, because the soldier in every home thing, that it was almost prophetic. The soldier in every home who will destroy the world because his wife is murdered, and will take on the establishment that actually trained him if he has to. What are they really trying to say? This is a mercy movie. Understand, in the books, in the Tom Clancy books, John Kelly or John Clark is an Irish guy. So is Jack Ryan. These are Irish guys in the books. Why are they suddenly shifting that down? Because they know exactly, they're not looking at this movie. I'm going to tell you this, just like the movies of our childhoods that we loved, how they weren't really made for that time, but they were made for you to get them in the future. They were showing you exactly where shit is going to be, or what they suspect things are going to be like. This is kind of a mercy movie.
And to add on to that, and you know, said so. I'll put it into this category real quick. 20 years ago, let's just move it to a different demographic, right, Ruby? The LGBT community, they were represented into movies, but they couldn't outwardly come out and say what they were. They insinuated, but they couldn't outwardly say what they were, right? And then over time, when they were in roles and they're there and you saw them on television and stuff, over time, then you were desensitized to see them, then they can outwardly say what they are, and now they are where they're at, right? Their representation, right? And with that representation, they have cachet, they have social clout, power, and stuff, right? You can't say nothing about the small hat peoples, and you really can't talk about them. I'm just talking about in America, right? So if you have this black man that was always portrayed, and Queen Latifah's actually got an Equalizer series, the Equalizer series. If you show black people actually in a patriotic or there for family, where we were always showed that we were single mothers or, you know, derelict fathers and all of this other stuff, but you can't start seeing these roles, not just with Michael B. Jordan, but Denzel Washington's son when he had that movie Tenet, right? When you start seeing this over and over again, right, you get an influx of these black men, right, that it's okay now to see them in these roles of power because of X, Y, and Z, right? It's okay to see him as a police officer. It's acceptable. Then the black community will accept it, but the larger dynamic will accept it, right? It's a desensitizing tactic because they already see what's going on. They can't reverse because they've done too much damage. They're just going to swing where it's going to go, right?
Right.
So
That's
basically what's happening.
Matter of fact, Dre, if we really want to sum it up, because you got to look at all media as propaganda.
Yes, it is.
Who is this media? Who is this movie really being made for? Is it really being made to kind of kiss the asses of black folk, or is it being made to subvert the paradigm of the majority?
And that's what it's really actually for. Ruby. It's for them. It's really for the majority right now to make them feel comfortable. With
and it's going to happen. They're going to become a minority because everybody assumes that movies are just fiction, theory. They don't happen in real life. And then you know what's going to happen? Well, because those that are the kings of media industry right now, they're looking 25 years from now, 45 years from now. They're not looking at now.
Yeah.
They're looking at, who's going to be the majority? The majority of children being born now are what? Non-white. So why am I going to sit there and try to bet all of my cards in the media, right? Trying to produce basically visual crack. Right? Visual crack to someone who's not even going to be the majority in 40 years.
Well, if I could just add something, and again, I don't know anything about like this movie or the premise, so that probably is why it's hard to comment, but just based on what y'all are saying, right, it being a police movie, I would just say this. Starting with, Police Academy to, the millions of different cop shows to other movies. It seems like every time police relations with the society go really bad, then they come out with the movie. I'm just saying. So, I mean, and like the movies are to humanize or to change your opinion in some way or another. So I can see the angle in that case then of like, right now, it's like, the evil white police officer. Like that's like the narrative of police right now, right? And the blue line and all of that. So then you put like a black man in power in police and this and that. And then it's like, I do think that it's definitely supposed to take the a portion of the black majority's mind away from police equal enemy, right? Like, FOPP. Like, I mean, there's so every time things get really hostile, and things have been getting more and more hostile over the last, let's say, all of Trump's presidency, especially, right, between the police and black folk. And then basically from the start of Corona onward, it's just been like a shit show, and it's just going everything. You don't even have to try anymore to try to find all of the bad stories. So, let's take our attention off of that. And look, black people can be cops too. Maybe we shouldn't be so hard on them because there are black cops, guys, right?
I'll put it this way. I'll put it this way, right? Like, let's take 15, 20 years ago. There was no Hollywood studio that would greenlight a movie like American Skin 20 years ago. They'll do it now. Why? Well, because back 20 years ago, they knew that whites will still be the majority.
And you know what? I'm glad you said that. If you look into the chat, Dougie Fresh, you're on. Like, the producer has came through. Tune in next week, folks.
Chastise. She got you, Jay. She got me.
She got me.
And you gotta show right back up. Same good old sweet masculinity time.
Oh my God. Sound like Mr. Garrison. Okay, sorry.
Next time I'm gonna have something really special to show y'all.
So for everybody that showed up today, thank you everybody. We went over a little bit. Thank you for the producer. And thank you for the panelists. I thank Educated Aries for showing up on the panel. I thank Classic Ruby. I'm glad she came in and threw them bombs down. Thank Sharja Cursa once again. Thank you to our Supreme Commander, Cerulean Grey, with the Grey Regime. No one will beg you to be great, but we will hold you accountable. Salute to the nation. Salute to the nobility. Emma Noblesse. Thank you. And y'all have a good night. And please come back and show up to JustaskChar tomorrow with Classic Ruby and JustaskChar will be there. You know what I'm saying? And also our esteemed Lady Vonda clutching them pearls. And we'll see you guys same time next week. And the 1/3 show will be kicking off next week once again. And good